talk as Trump, but they don't bash Trump in the show. It's only like Trump complains that there's a leak in the Space Force agency as their technology has gotten out somehow, and then because he doesn't find the spy or something, he's like, yeah, you're not getting your thing which you were going to get before, which was going to arrange for you.
Anyway, let's get started, guys. All right, so welcome to SmudTalk. Here we're just going to have an open discussion forum about one of those wonderful science fiction shows back in the day, StarGate. Now, we're not sure exactly which StarGate we're talking about because there's many of them, and there's movies and other things. There's an animated StarGate, apparently.
We don't talk about Infinity.
We don't?
No.
Okay. Well,
No.
There's the movie, the movies, the animated series. There's the original SG-1. There's Atlantis. There's Universe, and the stuff that shall not be named, apparently. So, voila. Would you guys like to talk about?
Well, who's the biggest
what's the show about?
StarGate fan? Yeah,
Who's the
the biggest
biggest?
fan? Yeah.
I'm really eclectic in my StarGate. I rather like Universe just because it was doing something very new. It heavily was inspired by BSG, and
Wait a minute, Sword Boy, hold on. So you're telling me that you like Stargate because it was doing something different? I heard from a very very prominent authorities, the people who love The Last Jedi, who said that people hate The Last Jedi because of the same reason. It was different. So you Smud Boy, you're impossible. You don't exist, apparently. Universe,
to an extent, is... I would consider it well written if you're only looking at it as its own show. But it is something which does not fit into Stargate at all. It is possibly the furthest you can get from Stargate within the sci-fi genre. As it's dark, it's bleak, it's horrible. It has multiple continuity issues with like the rest of the Stargate franchise, and it has lots of contrivances to actually set up the show. And then it's all... We know the reason why they cancelled Atlantis to make Universe, and it was all to just chase the Battlestar Galactica praise. You know, it's the age-old thing of trying to replace your existing audience with a more lucrative one, and we all know from past experiences that is a horrible thing to do. Because the people you're trying to attract either aren't interested or aren't going to be interested for long.
It was a hard
and you've
sell.
just thrown away your fans, which are your lifeline.
That's pretty much it. Like when you look at what the series was trying to do, it's like, okay, the tone is certainly not Stargate, because Stargate is usually comical and dramatic. It's not dark and survival horror, whatever you want to call that subgenre of storytelling, with people trying to survive in an alien ship, and they don't know what anything does.
It also doesn't work as in like in continuity, because you get the whole contrivance of they created the Stargates, and then they created a 9th chevron on every single Stargate to specifically dial this one ship. What happened to the crew of the Destiny? What happened? Like, why is it just floating out in space? Why did the ancients think flying for a couple million years would be a great idea? Well, not million, billion, in fact. Going to the center of the galaxy. It's just kind of the whole setup for the show and the reason why it's in Stargate. It just doesn't work.
There would have to be extreme amounts of exposition to explain everything, and that was the idea, where you uncover a piece of the puzzle of what this ship is and what it's trying to do. And we got a little bit of it, but it didn't really make sense.
But then the idea of the ship is stupid in the first place.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it was before.
Agreed.
Maybe it was before the idea of the ancients. Maybe before the ancients ascended, they were doing all these experiments, and this is one of them. That could have easily worked.
We know it's way before they ascended.
Yeah,
it's
because
way
that
before
always
Atlantis,
ends well
because
when
the
the ancients
technology is
do
completely
experiments.
different. But the whole thing is, like, why would they create a ship to go to the center of the universe to follow this signal that in the journey would take billions of years, and they just sent the ship out there, and they thought that this was a good idea, like this was going to work? Because we know for a fact in the universe, stasis won't keep you alive for millions of years, or even billions, because you're still slowly aging inside the pod.
Yeah.
What was that you said, LiteratureDevil? I faintly heard you say something about the center of the universe.
So they're going to the point is they're going to the center of the universe. Don't they know that? That's where God is.
Yes.
That's where God is, and he's going to ask you for a starship.
The reason they were
No,
going,
that's the galaxy.
the reason they were going was because if I remember correctly, there was something there, some kind of signal, and the ship was designed to find this signal and investigate it. So that's what this new crew is doing. That they're going to the center of the universe and trying to figure out what it is. Maybe it's the meaning of life. They don't know. Unfortunately, the show ended after 2 seasons, so we'll never know.
I know the comic tried to explain like why the ship was empty, and it was apparently like an accident. They accidentally launched it millions of years ago, but it still doesn't explain why they thought it was a good idea. It's like, oh, whoops, we accidentally launched our really expensive spaceship. Oh well.
The fact that it has to be,
in the grand. I was going to say, in the grand scheme of the ancients causing problems, this is like the lowest of the problems they've ever created. By the way, the Pegasus Galaxy says, "Thanks for the Wraith."
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we learned about the ancients.
The whole setup for the show was stupid.
It
doesn't fit in the
ancients and their
Stargate.
experiments never.
It was
ended
all
well.
just chased Battlestar Galactica thing.
I just think they borrowed the tone. I just think they liked the idea of this ship that was created for some reason that was a mystery, and everyone had to survive on it and get along together, despite dwindling resources and chains of command that were stressed and all these other wonderful, simple things, which didn't even need the StarGate brand, I think, for it to work. They could have made their own franchise and worked off that.
It would have worked a lot better at being its own thing.
I think so. Yeah, I think because the
honestly,
expectations.
Especially since they cancelled Atlantis.
Yeah, honestly, if you jumped like into the middle of an episode of Stargate Universe, like with no context whatsoever, you would never guess it was Stargate.
Other than the spinning ring.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, but I'm saying like if you jumped in the middle of an episode where like 2 people are talking or they're going through the ship, and there's like you don't even see the Stargate. I'm just saying, like, if you come in at that point,
Stargate in the Ancients.
Oh, there were some big, stupid devices they used to keep the story going. Like the communication stones were absolutely one of the worst ideas I've ever seen for any, not any science fiction, but in terms of, okay, we have to communicate with back home. What do we do? I know. Let's have a magical stone device where you swap bodies with someone else and the other part of the universe. You're just like, that's not good. That's not going to work very well, because then you have all these body swapping things and relationships.
Yeah, those were invented specifically to introduce the Ori in SG-1.
Really?
Yeah, and that was like, you got to remember too. It was like backwards engineered by the humans. It's like, really, like, how did you guys like manage to do this? Like, create a communication device that can connect between galaxies.
Wow, Stargate really did change after I stopped watching it.
Yeah, it did. Well, you missed Atlantis. Atlantis was really good.
Yeah,
Atlantis... I watched a bit of Atlantis. Yeah, it's just the fact that I kept watching bits and bobs, and like you said, when I used to watch it, it didn't feel like Stargate, but SG-1 did start to change, and I'm like, oh right, okay, I'm completely behind on this.
Well, I think season 7 was when it was starting to really slow down, and then when it got to 8 and the replicators, it got iffy.
Yeah.
And then 9 and 10 with the Ori were kind of a bit of a mess.
The replicators and the
Yeah,
Ori
I never liked.
were like a double-edged sword every time you saw them, because yes, they have a great concept, but they're invincible. And it's always one or the other. And then the Ori just gets so big, and you're like, oh, they are unstoppable. How are you going to do this? And they have this giant...
I don't think the replicators should have ever been adversary directly for the humans and the Tauri. It should have only been for the Asgard. Because, like, to the point, they could only defeat the replicators by using an ancient weapon on Dakara, and they had to dial every single Stargate in the universe, and it set out the pulse to destroy the replicators. The pulse even went to Earth, and no one on Earth questioned this massive pulse that just went through the entire planet. originating from Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah, that seems a bit. Yeah.
Now, the idea of Atlantis was
the
fine.
whole dialing
when was
all the
season 8?
Stargates thing.
When was season 8? When did season 8 come out? What year was that around? I'm trying to think.
Oh, geez. That must have been around 2005 or 6?
Okay, then if that's the case, then I think Mass Effect 3 ripped off Stargate.
Why?
At least in terms of the ending. Like, yeah, we have this secret weapon that nobody knows how to use, and we got to activate all of the Stargates. I'm sorry, the Mass Effect relays in order to use this weapon.
I think that's more just a lazy way to get rid of a villain. Yeah, just a very generic, lazy way than actually trying to rip off Stargate.
Yeah, 2005 season 8 was, yeah.
Well, Stargate got a little goofy.
Yeah, and technically the replicators weren't invincible. I mean, they went down with... I mean, we you could pretty much kill them with bullets, which is something the Asgard couldn't do since they upgraded to energy weapons.
Mm. I love how SG-1 actually did the whole, the Asgard are too advanced thing much better than Into Darkness did with Star Trek. Because, SG-1, it wasn't like the Asgard were coming to humans about technology. But I find it funny in Star Trek Into Darkness, they revive Khan from the past and say, hey, we need to build better, more devastating weapons. It's like, what's Khan going to do? He's going to say, okay, well, what you do, you get more explosives. And you just make the ship bigger and more guns.
Well, I seem to remember an episode, like when you talk about Star Trek, it inevitably goes to elements of Stargate because of the crisscross of ideas. The scientific or the science fiction elements, the plot devices, the scenarios that get involved in are very similar. I remember one of the last few episodes of Stargate SG-1, it was like this slow motion time scenario. And was it Teal'c who was sent back because there was this beam about to destroy the ship they were on, and they spent.
I remember that episode.
It was the last episode of season 10.
Right. It was like 30 years had to pass for them for whatever. Was it Peter McKay or no? They had to figure out some equation to go back in time, and that's what McKay was figuring out all this time. So
it was. Oh wait, what?
Yeah, it was McKay.
I'm confused now what you're talking about.
Okay, the thing is, I'm comparing it to Star Trek with the I don't know if you remember Star Trek Timescape, where...
I don't know, what episode are you talking about? Because now you bring up McKay.
Right, because there was... Teal'c had to go back in time to stop this from
McKay had nothing to do with...
Oh, really?
That.
Am I getting my episodes confused? Because it was hard to follow.
I don't know, you're talking... You're on the ship and the Ori beam is about to hit it and the time stops.
Right.
Well, they're in the time dilation field.
Extremely slow. Like we're talking, like time is slowed down.
Yeah, the time dilation field.
Right. So they have to figure out how to get out of it.
I should say the time inside the field is sped up a lot.
All right. Okay. So they have to figure out how to escape that thing, and it takes 30 years or so, or whatever. They're stuck together on this ship, and I don't know what the hell they're doing. They drive themselves insane. But because Teal'c is alien, he's can live a lot longer. So he ends up the one to go back and stop events from happening?
Well, it's not necessarily going back in time, because outside the bubble, the time actually hasn't passed. It's more just, trying to undo the effects of the time going really fast inside the bubble. So I suppose going back in time is more based on perspective. Maybe it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did send Teal'c back in time because when he did come back to like the point where it all went wrong, he still looked old. Like he had like a silver streak of hair.
No, but that's because he still went through all that time.
Right. So.
Oh, okay. I vaguely remember the episode, but I remember like he comes back and he like stops Carter from like activating a device.
Right, and that's when we have that episode with Atlantis where he and was it Ronan Dex are fighting in SG-1. And they end up teaming up to stop whatever.
Oh yeah,
invasion.
I remember that.
And he's got the white hair as well, and they're all talking to each other and all the jokes. Like we're talking about Christopher Judge and what's his name?
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa. Yeah.
These two big guys beating the shit out of each other. Like, what the hell is this?
For a good hour into the other cast members.
Yeah, they're all betting on him, like who's gonna win, and they're just like whipping the shit out of each other in training. It's like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, and then later on they make jokes about their own catchphrases. Like he's like, "You say indeed a lot." He's like, "Oh, I did not notice."
Well, you do. It's like, why didn't you tell me?
Stargate is a very unique sci-fi, and I think that gives it a lot of charm because it's. I don't think there are as many sci-fi out there that are not only based in modern times, or at least modern times when it was being produced, but also taking on a lot of mythological aspects and turning them into science fiction in a very well done way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now there were some plot lines I did enjoy, like the idea of what was the Michael character they introduced in Atlantis. It was the execution that I did not really enjoy. Some of the characters.
Yeah, Michael and the hybrids were a little bit iffy.
Well, that's because it introduced the idea of how did the what are they called? The vampires come about. What are they called? Space vampires.
Wraith.
The Wraith. How did they come about? Well, the ancients found this other organism and they started crossbreeding them with
the Erasmus bug.
Right. And
I think I remember correctly. They fast tracked its evolution. They're like, hey, let's see what this thing looks like when it's fully evolved. Oops, we made a mistake.
I don't think the ancients. Like, did the ancients make it? I think the Wraith or the Erasmus bug started taking on.
They found
traits.
the bug. Yeah.
It started taking on the traits from humans. As it was zapping the life out of them, and then just became the Wraith. But then the Wraith also have like human organs at the same time, so they just need to turn them on to make them eat. But then that turns them into cannibals.
Oh my god!
There's an episode where they just started eating people because they removed the ability to feed.
Oh god!
Wow.
But the other thing was with the Wraith was that they could suck the life out of you and then just bring it back. I was like, that's a bit. That's like okay.
That was only used like once, I think, and that was like in the terms of like Colonel Shepard.
It was used another time as well. Colonel Shepard has the broken gun to the back of the head of the Wraith. He doesn't know it's broken, and there's the girl on the ancient ship, and they're both stranded. And then he's just finished feeding on her, and he's like, "Okay, well, give it back, otherwise I'm going to blow your head off."
Message coming in.
So that it also comes up then.
Oh, okay.
And it's like 100%. It's all good. Yeah, I'll just give the life right. It's like, what? Are you a vampire? What the hell are you doing? There's some sort of
that sounds like something they put in so they could have a dramatic death of a main character, but then also bring them back.
Well, I think it was more because it got to the point because it was introduced in the episode where John Shepard had a lot of his life taken away from him because he was being kept by the Jedi, and the Jedi also had the captured Wraith to feed off him, and then they both worked together to escape. And then what happens is at the end, the Wraith, gives back the life which he had taken from Shepard.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
So let's try and summarize. Let's try and summarize all the positives of all the shows. Let's start from SG1 because that's kind of where everyone got inspired.
The start of it.
Yeah, it's where it all began. So what was the best part, or what were the best elements with the plot lines or characters or whatever the thing that attracted you to SG1? Let's just start from the left. With BB there.
Okay, this is going to sound totally cliche for everyone who's seen Stargate SG-1, but the first episode I ever watched on TV was Window of Opportunity, and I was hooked instantly. And for those who don't know what Window of Opportunity is, that was the episode where Teal'c and Colonel O'Neill were trapped in a time loop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great episode.
Patching it through.
So in case you don't know, that
was the first episode. Well, go ahead, Smud.
That was a complete of a farce episode. Like, we're going to just try and have as much fun as possible because we're stuck in a time loop, and it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And
I love how Daniel's like, hey, so you can literally do anything with no consequences. As you just keep happening over and over again, and then all of a sudden they just look at each other and then leave. It's like, what? No, I haven't got this. Translate this, and then like they both just walk off and start doing all these comedic things. The antics were absolutely hilarious.
But see, that's
I also love it when they were like when the other people were like trying to figure out like what's going on, and they're like, well, wait a minute, Colonel O'Neill is saying stuff that he would never say, all these scientific terms and stuff.
And there's also they're playing golf and shooting it through the Stargate, and there as the general.
I remember.
Colonel O'Neill, what are you doing? And then he yells back, "It's like in the middle of my backswing."
I remember I saw a Q&A where Chris Judge was talking about that scene, and he said that he hit his ball through the gate perfectly. And he says, if you look really closely, you can see that Richard Dean Anderson's golf ball was CGI. And I think he meant it as a joke, though.
I actually do remember that episode. Yeah, because I remember the golf via the Stargate stuff.
And it also hands in his resignation to kiss Carter without breaking the rules of the military.
And then he's sitting there looking across from her during the next time loop, looking very smug, and she's like, "What are you smiling about?" He's like, nothing."
Fantastic episode.
Yeah.
I actually love.
I don't know. I think how I got into Stargate was through. Like I was just flicking through Netflix and they had the entirety of it on there, so I just started watching it and I just loved it.
There were some elements there were things I enjoyed, and there was things that I sort of like caught on to very quickly, and it was slowly becoming very close to a pulpy, almost a comic book style story where you have the characters that, okay, you know what Daniel Jackson does, we know what the Brains does, like they'll have their roles, and it all makes sense. We get that. But then they started going into the enlightened ones, or the ascended ones, and there's all these gods and all these other creatures that are beyond the scope of mortality.
You mean the ancients?
The ancients. Those are part of them. They're not the only ones there. And
the ancients are the only really ones which are ascended, other than the Ori, and the Ori don't come until much later.
They talk about, I think, one of the other...
and they come out of nowhere, too, the Ori. They come out of nowhere. No mention of them at all.
Originally, it was the ancients evolved on Earth or something, or at least it's assumed. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, they came here from another galaxy. I suppose we didn't know for concrete they were from Earth, but it was heavily suggested that they were.
And yeah, you see these changes to the characters that, like, say, Daniel just keeps dying every season, and they keep bringing him back. Well, he ascends, he comes back.
Yeah.
So he's not only being brought back.
There was a lot of characters who died and came back. Like when they introduced the Nox, they all died, and the Nox brought them back to life.
Wow, great!
Trying to remember, I do remember the wonderful storyline with with Miles O'Brien. What's his name? Colin Meaney, and he was it pre-industrial or just industrial Earth-like alien? Like he's just humanoid.
You mean the
Genii?
The Genii.
Yeah, the Genii. And they were just about control and subterfuge. They wanted to get power, and their tech was low, but they still had guns, they still had bullets and what have you, so they could pose a threat. And that I really like, because that reminded me of what the concepts behind Stargate Universe was all about. It's not all about technology and aliens, even though those were elements. It was about control, and that you can have a secret organization or a splinter group of a bunch of people, and they could change everything. And that was one of the good things about Stargate Universe, but also one of the bad things, because they didn't actually take advantage of that. I don't think they killed off or got rid of, what's his name, the original commander, within due time. And that's what I thought they were going to go with, because people do die in Stargate. Characters do die and change alignment and go off and do their own thing.
Message coming in.
And that was what I was hoping for to see in Universe, because it was all political. There was where the people rebelled against the military. Like we're gonna be in charge now because we're the people. Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? You can't do this. We're the one with the guns. What are you going to do? Like, it was this funny little power struggle because of what people.
Are you
wanted.
talking about the Civilian Oversight Committee? I forget their name, but yeah, they thought they could come in and like take over and like, oh, we know what to do here. It's like, no, you don't. You've never dealt with any of these aliens,
right? Plus, that was an element of Stargate Universe with what's his face, Robert Picardo, and his character who was originally on Stargate SG-1, and he was the bureaucrat. He was the guy saying, "Where's all this money going? Like, what's happening?"
Robert Picardo's on Stargate.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He was on Stargate SG-1. He was on Stargate SG-1 as like a bureaucrat. He was like kind of like the bad guy of the week sort of thing, where he comes in and he does like this kind of like audit of like the SG program. Then he was on Atlantis.
He really shined
where
in
eventually
Atlantis. He actually had this arc where he went from like the person who always did everything by the book, like he was very much stuck to it, to someone who is a bit more loose as you realize that, you know, sometimes you do have to, you know, bend the rules. I think like after his first episode, he's like, after my first day on the base, I have broken 15 rules in the book. Usually I would fire someone for that.
Yeah,
I'm still enjoying what Bad Boy put in the Discord about the deaths.
Yeah, that's
really
all
these deaths
the main
are
character.
in the same episode, or they're not like an act. So we knew that Daniel ascended. We didn't. It was very much wasn't a proper death.
Yeah, but I'm still just laughing about how many there are.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it became a joke among the cast about how many times they killed Daniel.
I thought.
Yeah, they
thought,
even mentioned it in the show. I remember very vividly. Adam Baldwin, Jane from Firefly. Him and his team were talking about they found these ancient ruins on a planet, and one of the guys goes, "Oh, Dr. Jackson's gonna die," and one of them goes, "Again?"
I thought Jackson died the most.
I love the.
But this is saying that it's
the parody they did of Stargate inside the show itself.
Teal'c died 22 times.
Oh God, that show.
Yeah, Teal'c died and came back 22 times.
I know they have a resurrection chamber on some of the ships in Stargate, because that's what what are they called again?
Yeah, the sarcophagus. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but no, the actual aliens, I forget. Anyway, but that's like a get out of jail free card.
Gould.
The Gould, yeah. Like that I understand, because that's an established piece of lore. But 22 times, I thought Daniel died the most. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, Daniel only died 15
you got to read the
times.
part, Smud. It says these deaths include alternate versions, virtual versions, robotic versions of the characters.
Oh yeah, Teal'c would get a fuck ton from the episode where he was in the virtual computer, where he
that
was
stupid episode
in the combat simulator.
I remember that, where he just gives up and he just lets
yeah.
himself get killed over and over again.
I thought that would rack up his death count a lot more than just 20.
That was I really don't like episodes where it's all a game, or it's all a dream, or it's a simulation.
Yeah.
It never works. It never worked in Deep Space Nine. It never worked in Star Trek. It never worked in. It just does not work. These fun adventures or battle simulations that turn to be real or something. It's like, oh God.
Well, in Deep Space Nine, when they're doing the Ocean's 11 whole the thing, where they're trying to rob the casino, that works. I think that's a fun episode.
Ocean's
Yeah,
11.
pretty cool one. I like that one.
Which one was that?
Yeah.
It's towards the end of the last season.
I think the last season.
Because the casino, there's a thing in the Holo program, which at any point will just turn it into a new event where, you know, the actor has been thrown out of his club. He's now homeless, and they have to steal the money in order to get rid of the guy so he can have Vic Fontaine. That's it. So Vic Fontaine can have his club back.
See that,
and because Vic Fontaine has helped everyone on the crew at some point, they're like, you know, even though he's a hologram, we're going to help him.
See, that is taking a good idea that they sort of started with in Star Trek: The Next Generation with was the creation of Minuet, like this jazzy sort of environment character.
Minuet, yeah.
And then they take this idea and run with it in Deep Space Nine, where there's this whole club, this whole what is it? It's a casino, lounge, whatever, and they run with that. And I think that was clever. So these things do work. Now compare that to the movie with Picard, where he's fighting the Borg with the safeties off. You're like, oh, that's not.
I knew that was going to come up. I knew that was going to come up.
That's not that
The
clever. I'm
Borg
sorry.
can stop lasers, but they can't stop bullets.
It's,
Holographic bullets.
Fake bullets.
but the safeties
Oh
are
my
off, guys. It's real bullets. Like, oh, okay. The Borg couldn't.
But that also brings up the question: if bullets can work against the Borg, why don't we just make bullets? But then it's like, I don't know. That's a question for another time.
Bullets work, but missiles, no, you can't use photon torpedoes. It doesn't do anything. Oh,
No, I mean just like
I'm-
bog standard bullet.
Don't the Borg eventually like adapt to whatever weapon is thrown at them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
For some reason, they like unadapt. Like it's deleted from, like it's stored in their RAM, and then when they just kind of reset, they just forget to adapt to phasers for a couple times,
Yeah.
and then they have to like rotate the modularity of the phaser for it to be more effective, but they still adapt to that.
Right, I remember that from the movies where it's like, okay, we have to like adapt our phasers, every like 14 shots or something like that.
that was the
They
problem.
really neutered the Borg in Voyager.
Voyager really neutered. Yeah, you're talking neuter. That was like
Yeah.
downgrade.
Voyager like I knew everything. The Q, the Borg.
So
everything.
Voyager can go one-on-one with a big-ass fucking Borg tactical cube.
Because Janeway is a woman, therefore she can beat anything.
No, but, like, one of these Borg cubes fucked up entire fleets of Federation ships. How is one that is
359.
even worse than that going to... Like, how does it not just squash, like, Voyager?
Yeah. Voyager is not a
It's
big
not a warship, it's
warship.
just a science ship. It's supposed to be one of the
Yeah.
background ships.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Stargate. So I think
Yeah, sorry.
the goofiness of Stargate, the comedy, with
Mhm.
with episodes of drama and action, and it sort of gave you a mix of a little bit of everything without being too serious. And that was kind of it was like watching a comic book to me, because when you have a comic book, not everyone dies. I think there were some deaths in Stargate, but they weren't that often, here and there. It was just it was a happy show, despite the seriousness of a lot of the elements later on. So
Well, when I used to watch it with my parents, I'm talking back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was only very little watching it. So my parents obviously thought it wasn't too horrible to look at.
yeah, definitely not. So I think
I think
that
it must
was
have been about
it
five or six at the time. So
yeah, no, it's not quite hard science fiction, but it's hard enough for you to go, okay, yeah, they're taking it seriously, but at the same time, the tone is not serious. It's a very interesting balance. What I was trying to, because they have there's a great episode, I can't remember what it's called, but where O'Neill gets impaled by some sort of alien device and he's stuck up against the wall and it's slowly killing him, and they have to try to free him. That's a very tragic little story there where they're trying to free their friend, and everyone's like giving him last rites and this and that and talking about what he's going to do. So, and they finally figure it out. So there's lots of stories like that where it's, what do we do in this scenario where people are going to die? That is fine. I think those are told well. There are some hokey scenarios where they come against a new alien or a new Goa'uld force and they meet some Jaffa, and they play the normal story of what does Teal'c going to do when he meets his Jaffa? Are they going to fight? Are they going to join forces? And then we learn later that Teal'c becomes more of a diplomat leader for his people as the story goes on. Jackson becomes a ascendant, then becomes a descendant, and I don't know. He switches around a few times. Carter, I think gets actually Jackson buffs up. He really hits the gym. I don't know what the hell happened.
Also becomes a lot more snarky in like seasons like 9 and 10.
I think he starts becoming more sassy much earlier than 9 and 10. Because I remember
he was really laying it on thick in season 9 and especially around Claudia Black's character.
Right. That was kind of the reason, I think, because they were attracted to each other, but he hated her originally, and he still kind of did, even though they had a...
Well, considering she beat the shit out of him when they first met, I would say, and he brings it up all the time. She's like, do you trust me? And he's like, no!
I love that.
You kicked my ass. Of course not.
No, he still won in the end. He stopped her.
Oh.
Hey, remember, like, what was it? Prometheus Inbound, I think the episode was.
And that was
but when she comes back, it's like, isn't this the room where I beat you up? It's like, no.
Yeah, the intro of Claudia Black.
That's what I was talking about before, where Claudia Black is introduced as this crazy fighter, and then all of a sudden she just stops being a crazy fighter.
It's pretty much, hey, the character from what's it called? The other show she was on, where she was a crazy fighter as well, of Farscape, where she's a military...
Farscape, yeah.
Where she's just this brutal, military leader, and then all of a sudden she just chills out at the end as the story goes on. It's like, oh, you have a daughter, really? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Anyway, let's go to Atlantis, which is a little bit more focused.
I think Atlantis is much better than SG-1, even though it's lost the mythological elements. I think it's a much more streamlined version of the Stargate formula, and I think specifically McKay is a much better character than anyone else on the rest of Stargate. Because Atlantis had characters which were, again, McKay and trying to remember his name now, Robert Picardo, had the biggest arcs in most of Stargate.
Richard Woolsey.
That's it.
I'm trying to remember all the characters. There was a lot of characters that died or left the show, and like the one character I really liked was Ford, because he starts off as just this guy. He gets infected. He becomes an enemy, and becomes this little like he could have really played like they sort of worked the Ford
didn't really do anything.
No. But his role as a character was sort of the same way they work with Michael, because he's sort of this guy who they started off as a friend and becomes an enemy. And Ford, I think he left in like the second season or whatever it was, but
he left in the first season, or at least at the beginning of the second season.
Yeah, it comes back.
And then I think as they bring on Ronan, or at least not too far after they bring on Ronan,
right,
or Jason Momoa, just for Devil, since he doesn't know the names exactly. I think they kill him off. Or at least I think is very much inferred that he died.
Right.
I thought it was like left open, like they thought he was dead, but like Shepard like still had like doubts. Like he's like, nah, he's still out there. He's still out there somewhere.
Yeah, he's hunting Wraith
he doesn't come back
to get the blood.
And I think the ship explodes.
Well, there were other characters there like Zelenka. I don't
remember. It was a long time ago.
Like you needed Zelenka to like balance out McKay, to just like, okay, McKay, you're a genius, but you can't do everything yourself. There's more people here that are just as smart, but not as genius as you. So they had all these great characters that worked and they made sense, and I like that. But the idea of discovering Atlantis and having all this technology they haven't figured out yet is kind of where they stole and ran with Universe. But Universe is just the extreme of that, where they need to survive in this alien ship, whereas Atlantis was a city, which was technically a ship. It was kind of both. And they still had to unlock stuff and discover. So that sort of grounds the world. It grounds the setting, so it allows you to take your time and develop stories and develop encounters without being so tense and deadly, which to me, I would accept both. It depends how you do it. And Atlantis, because it was a continuation of Stargate SG-1, it allowed it to increase it just a bit more. The problem was the conflict always involved the Wraith. It seemed to always be the Wraith is attacking or the Wraith are going to do something, until eventually they just escaped the Wraith entirely by just leaving the planet, where the Atlantis city just takes off and they just fly off, like, get the hell out of here. And they land on another planet. I can't remember how that all worked. But it was just like stuff like that you don't expect. But when you go back to SG-1, you think, oh, this is a comic book style pulp, a serialized form of science fiction, of course something like this could have happened. That's a great idea. And they run with that. And I like seeing those ideas because they're not too far-fetched, and they have enough things to work with. So like the aquatic monster. There's a drilling platform at the bottom of the ocean that Atlantis is, sitting on top of, and they have to befriend it, and they figure out how that thing stopped working or whatever. Like they could explore stuff like that a bit more. They didn't do too much with that though, like the fact that it was water based or the city was on water. They didn't really talk about the systems of the city. They weren't exploring all the secrets as much as they could have. They could have told that story for years and years about unlocking things and discovering things without going too crazy, I think.
Well, there were episodes where they were exploring Atlantis and they would find, I don't know, the episode where there was the virus or the nanovirus, which we then found out was created by the ancient version of the replicators.
Yeah. There's
also what is it? Another episode where they're exploring the city, and in fact, there's the two scientists who explore the city. They accidentally get explosive tumors. That was another episode.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of clips from Stargate Atlantis lately, and a lot of jokes I see in the comment section of the videos are when the last room they unlock in the city, because they were still exploring the city in the show. The last room that they were going to unlock is the room that contains like all of the ZPMs and how to make them.
Really? That was their main crux. That was the problem they had. They never had enough energy. And every time they used energy, it was like, oh my God, we're almost out. And their shields were never working properly at full strength. And it was being bombarded by the Wraith weapons. It's like, oh my God, we're going to die. If they figured that out, that would have solved so many, that would have broken the story. Because not only can you make ZPMs, you can then send that technology back to Earth and
limited power. But then there has to be some kind of limitation on ZPMs, because otherwise, why wouldn't the ancients put them on every single one of their ships?
Which is hilarious because they had that one episode.
So you can't just make ZPMs,
right? Because that one episode they had the alternate universe Rodney McKay, who was experimenting with ZPMs, and because it's an alternate universe, everyone was experimenting at the same time. And this one guy comes through, he's like, "Hey, I'm Rodney." And they were
that's not it.
No,
that episode was they were trying to the ZPM was extracting energy from a localized pocket of subspace. It's called the 0 point module, and then they discovered the technology of the ancients where they were trying to extract energy from their own space-time, but when they took it from their own space-time, it would create exotic particles which threw the laws of physics out the window, which was creating problems and then caused that system to explode. Then what was happening was Rodney McKay decided he was going to he's like, okay, so what we do, we make a space bridge and we put the exotic particles through that, and then he needed his sister's help. And then they assumed that whatever universe they were going to put it in wasn't going to have any, living beings there. So they just put it through, didn't expect it to be inhabited. It was. And then, the other Rodney McKay comes through and it's like, hey, look, you're putting exotic particles into our galaxy. It's incredibly dangerous for us. Please, can you stop?
I seem to recall that.
But then there's the whole thing where they couldn't stop it.
With the weapon, that's where Rodney McKay blows up an entire solar system because of that weapon that they started up again, and that was the fight with it. Was it with the replicators? I think was that the
no. It was still against the Wraith when they found that weapon.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't even the weapon. The weapon was just a way of unleashing the energy, like a faucet.
And it wasn't even good enough. That's why it overloaded and it blew up an entire solar system.
Well, the thing is,
Brandon McKay got cocky too.
It wasn't that it couldn't release enough energy. It was the fact that everything became so unpredictable as the laws of physics were being thrown out. Like, because the exotic particle creation was making it so it was just uncontrollable.
Okay. So they do some cool stuff, basic sci-fi stories. in Atlantis, and it's kind of contained. I guess they had to create ships a lot in SG-1 for them to go to other places outside of gating, because all you could really do with a gate was just walk. You could only walk to new places, and you're a bunch of guys on foot, and that was that. So they had to bring in what were they called again? The
smaller ships were called the X-302s, and then I think the big ones were called the BC.
The X-302 was the first one, and then later on it was X-304, I think.
No, it became the BC X-30. No, it was the BC 304 rather than X.
I was trying to remember the name.
Yeah, they had
the first ship was the Prometheus. Yeah,
right.
which O'Neill's objected to. He called it the Enterprise.
Whoever was the superiors didn't want to go with that. But I never liked the design of the Prometheus. It was a horrible, ugly-looking design.
Nobody liked it.
The CGI asset also wasn't very high quality. But the Daedalus class, that is a fucking gorgeous ship design.
I'm trying to remember.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm now just having a look at the images. Oh my dear God. Yeah, that is not a good looking ship.
Oh, you're looking at the Prometheus? Yeah.
Yeah.
Compare that to the Daedalus, which is much more sexy.
It looks like something you use to slip your shoe on.
What, the Daedalus?
No, the Prometheus.
Oh, the Prometheus. I'm not sure what it looks like. It looks like
Oh yeah, that's a lot. The Daedalus is a lot better. Yeah, the Daedalus looks a lot better. It looks actually like a ship.
You know, I just found a fan design of the Prometheus that actually looks a lot better than the original model from the show.
It looks like
what were they thinking with the two like the things that are coming off the side?
I don't know.
It's
because
hard to
there's like at the back there's the rocket thrusters which look like something off of a
wait.
Like an actual.
Was this a human design or was this an Asgard design? I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
This was the Taurine design. So they started building the ship, use reverse engineering Goa'uld technology and some of the technology which was given them by the Asgard. But the hyperdrive was reverse engineered Goa'uld technology, but it was using Naquadria as fuel rather than Naquadah, which meant it was more efficient or faster.
Okay.
Yeah, and they just kept slapping stuff onto it. It's like, here's some rail guns. Let's slap that on there. Let's slap that on there. Slap that on there.
Yeah,
onto the Prometheus.
The beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I think they said like the ones that they used in Atlantis, like the defensive Atlantis, they slapped on or they took them off the Prometheus, or they slapped on the Prometheus.
Well, it was going to be used in the retrofit of the Prometheus, and then they just took them to Atlantis instead.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how these turrets were supposed to work on the Prometheus. Like, they look like they're specifically built, to be manned, not as like an automatic thing.
Yeah, whereas the Daedalus, they built it into the system rather than just like slapped it on after.
It's like an actual turret.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got like the retro rocket look, and then it's got like the two arms that come off the side, weirdly enough, and then it's got the hyperdrive engine / what was it? Hangar bay.
Yeah,
because that little bit there that's coming off the side, that's got like the glowy thing, and it glows brighter during hyperspace, suggesting it's the hyperspace engine. And then at the same time, we see ships come out of the side parts, which are the exact same place they come out on the Daedalus, which is suggesting it's the hangar bay.
Right. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. To be honest with you, it
looks ugly as fuck.
It also looks like a little handheld vacuum cleaner as well. I don't see this going through space, more cleaning my stairs.
There's no actual design choice that we could like. What's the design aesthetic of like? What's the purpose of this ship? Like, what is it trying to do? What are those things in the back of the ship that goes around?
The arms.
Whatever you like. What's the function? I want to know what these things do.
They haven't thought about the functionality of it at all. At least when you look at like the Daedalus, you can see those big long line of missile silos. So it's like, okay, that's for missiles. You can see a kind of conning tower and aerials. You can see little dishes that are like sensor arrays or communication arrays. You see the hangar bay doors and the little lines that go off those, which is like when you're taking off from I can't remember what it's called now. It's like a runway. That's it.
Yeah, runway. Yeah.
So there are so many details which inform you. They have their own purpose of the ship. That's something the Prometheus just doesn't have, like any kind of idea of what the hell's supposed to be going on. And I like
one picture. Yeah.
I like the front of the ship, but the problem is the back of the ship doesn't work with it at all, because it would work much better if the ship started branching out, but it's too skinny. And then again, the arms and the tower. If I was designing this, I would keep the front of the ship, but then completely rework the back.
Yeah.
And I would try and make the ship, span out a little bit more. It's too skinny.
It does look like a handheld vacuum cleaner, and it just puts me off. It seems so hectic at the back. It's like we just piled more and more things on top of each other at the back.
Remember when
they just look like two rocket
the original person in charge of it, they were trying to go for the really like Captain Kirk parody, where he's like doing the voice of I'll do it my way, Major, and he's like doing it in the I'll do it my way, and he's like really militaristic and gung ho. It's like I'll use my weapons, I'll do it. I don't like my shields being down.
Yeah,
when they've got the guns at the Prometheus because they're like, oh, we can't trust these aliens.
All right, so we like some of the ship design. We dislike some of the other ship designs, at least by the humans or the original ships they were using.
Something just about the ship designs, which is it peeved me a little bit. So the Hattacks originally in StarGate, they were the big oh fuck ship, but they were so big they'd landed on pyramids. I mean, it doesn't quite work that they land on pyramids because it's a triangle shape, as a triangle pyramid rather than a four-sided pyramid. So it does. The Hattacks don't really work on a pyramid, but hey, and they're like big. Oh fuck! This is big business when a Hattack shows up. But then later on in the seasons, they just started to become paper ships. Even before the Ori, there's the bigger mothership which just obliterates them in like 1 or 2 hits.
Oh yeah, Anubis's mothership.
Like I'm more than fine with him, that mothership taking them out, but not just instantly in 1 hit.
Well, compare that to the design of the Ori ships, where they're these weird, round. What are you?
Toilets.
I don't know what. Like they reminded me kind of like the Vulcan designs of their ships in Star Trek, but it was just too alien. I was just like, what is this thing? Like, what are they doing?
I don't think the problem is it's too alien. It's got this like 1 beam weapon, and that's all it's got, and it cuts through everything. And I'm fine with the circle in the middle because it is trying to reflect off of the ancient like Stargate. But then you've got all this empty space, and it just looks like a giant toilet.
Yeah, and it's got like a huge like power source too. I think if I remember correctly, I think they said it's like a star or something like that. I don't remember exactly what, but it was like a huge like bright glowing spot in the engine room or something like that.
But yeah, just Smud bring up the Vulcan ships, so I may as well just show off the Vulcan ships.
Right.
I think the only thing they have similar is that they have a big ring design.
Yeah, there's just too much space in those. Just too much empty space.
Yeah, I can see the influence. Like they were influenced by the design in Star Trek.
I don't think they were influenced by the design because I think that they did the ring because of it again to speak to the fact that they built the gates because these are the cousins of the gate builders. But it's all I don't like the almost bone look, like the ivory look of the hull. That's something that I didn't really like, but I think it works. That the ring idea works so much better with the Vulcan ship, even though it's a bit.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be some kind of nacelle, I guess, and it's a big spinning ring. Or it barely spins anyway.
Yeah. There's, like I say, there's some good designs of SG-1, but a lot of them do fall flat a little bit.
Well, I mean, if you're talking Stargate, because technically the design of the Daedalus isn't a design of SG-1, it's Atlantis. It's introduced in for the first time.
Okay, yeah, I'm talking about Stargate as like the whole series.
Mm.
Well, that's okay. The concept of Stargate is not really cool looking ships. It's really interesting stories.
Though I would say that Stargate has a lot of again the attack looks gorgeous. I love the design of the attack, and then the Daedalus again, as I mentioned before, is a beautiful design of ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so
and I very much preferred the attack over the just the one they introduced in the movie. It's just like a pyramid, and that's it.
Oh yeah, Ra's spaceship. Yeah,
it's just a pyramid, and it's a bit. It's a flying pyramid.
Well, to be fair, they did a lot of things in the movie that they didn't translate over to the TV show. To be fair,
yeah. Well, they retconned Ra being the last of his race and being some weird alien taking the form as human. He was actually they changed it to be like parasites, little worm things. And I'm fine with that change, actually, because I was never a big fan of the movie.
Yeah, there was like a theory like going around, like someone, I don't know how long ago this was, but like someone said like maybe that Ra was like some form of the Asgard, like based on like how his face looks like right before he gets killed, or as he's being killed and his face is being ripped apart.
Oh yeah, because they went with the stereotypical look of aliens. And then they did the same with the Asgard.
Okay, so let's go back to what we liked about Atlantis. I think did we already talk about that? Things we enjoyed.
I think we mentioned it a little bit.
Okay, well, I think the character dynamics were good. They had plenty of nice relationships, and it was pretty much business as professional as possible, but pretty laid back as well. It wasn't like freak of the week. It wasn't who's hooking up with who. It was still pretty this is business, we're serious, we're military. There's not that much fraternization, but there is
they were more civilian or at least
Taylor, she was pretty, like the first episode, like she's like, okay, we're going to help these descendants of the ancients and keep their way.
It's weird they were setting up like a romance between John and Taylor. Weirdly.
Kind of trying to. I don't even know if that was.
I think they did try to push it a little bit, but
and then I was
always more like Shepard and Weir, kind of a shipping.
I never really liked Weir. She was very bland. Like I kind of viewed her like Janeway with a lot less authority.
It was hard. It was a hard sell with Weir because she was trying to be this civilian diplomat expert. And there weren't too many scenarios where you needed her. This is kind of the same problem we had with Stargate Universe, the original commander of the expedition. He was not fit for duty. He just wasn't the right guy to do it. But that was kind of the point. They wanted to have that Battlestar Galactica sort of commander who was not the right guy for the job.
Oh, because they wanted the whole show to be Battlestar Galactica. The whole reason why they brought the show, again, as I mentioned before, was because they were trying to chase the popularity of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
So, I think Woolsey was a great leader. I think Carter was a great leader. She played pretty well. I mean, that's pretty. You just reprise your role. There you go. throw her in. That worked fine. So good contrast. The same thing with Star Trek. They threw actors on other shows, but they gave them at least a few seasons to so yeah, it's like my job just got extended by 2 more years,
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. And yeah, it got a bit more serious near the end, a bit goofier as well in some cases, but still the drama was there, and the characters like with Ronan, that was a pretty good inclusion. To have the Wraith plaything, they were just hunting him all the time. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, the brothers.
The thing that I always remember about Atlantis is I can always remember of the few episodes I watch, I can always remember the sets and the feel of the show. That's something that's always stuck with me. So while I didn't watch a lot of episodes, the ones that I did watch, I could still remember stuff and things from it and characters. So they obviously did a good job of making things memorable.
It felt very much like a space station, like they were on a base that was lived in, but still alien.
Yeah.
But there's something aesthetically pleasing about it, like the crystal sort of design of the glass and the chairs. Everything's sort of like, this is something special. Is this that we don't know what it is though? And I kind of like that we're not sure what this like people who'd want to stay there, like the same way that Rush from Stargate Universe was so obsessed with the ship. Like I could see characters wanting to be in it, just stay in it. Like, I want to learn as much as I want. There's all these secrets to uncover, all this stuff to discover. Like I could see that sort of storyline playing out. They never really did that. I mean, McKay was always having fun doing stuff and unlocking stuff. I think they were playing with cars one time, with RC cars running around.
I remember that.
For whatever reason. So it was kind of a fun...
another element of Stargate Atlantis was, and that they used in a universe, was the danger. Like they transported to another galaxy, and they were essentially stuck there until they could find a power source to power the gate to let them travel back and forth. I mean, yeah, they eventually got around it in a later season, but it was still like the element of we're stuck here. We have limited supplies, limited resources. There's no help coming for us if we get in trouble. There was that sort of element to it too.
I think that was only really in the first season, and then it became less so when they developed a connection with Earth. And actually found the show got better after season 1, and season 1 I don't think was as good.
It had some of the basic elements, like they had the general leader with Shepard. He was pretty good. He wasn't. I guess you could say in some cases he was better than O'Neill. He had more personality because O'Neill was just the hard ass military guy until he loosened up as the years went by. Whereas Shepard's more.
I'm thinking more about what you were talking about before of Weir, and I was like, yeah, I think that's definitely something which added to it. The fact that she didn't really do anything on the show because they didn't need a diplomat.
Right.
And again, the whole specialty is being a diplomat, and what did she do? What was done with that part of her character? Nothing. There's a couple times where she negotiates with the Jedi, but that's about it, really.
And then the whole bringing them back as a replicator was like, okay, that's too much. You're pushing this plot line.
Yeah. They were going to bring her back as some dark replicator, like when the replicators are destroyed, there's she's in black leather, and with the other replicators is now we can continue our work, and then she comes back. I was not really. They don't even get the actress. She's just
they got someone else.
It's oh yeah, I'm totally Weir. The reason why she's this other person is
granted that's par for the course for Stargate anyway, because remember what she looked like in SG-1 when they introduced her. She was blonde.
Oh yeah, she was
a different actress,
blonde,
and then in Atlantis she was
yeah.
Well, they threw her.
I think that the actress they had before wasn't going to continue and to do Atlantis, so they got the other Weir in to replace her because they knew they were going to do the Atlantis show.
Well, she threw herself out the airlock or someone else did? I can't recall.
She stepped through the StarGate into space so that the rest of the replicators would follow.
Oh, right.
Because she told them it was safe through their replicator link communications or something, and then they all walk through because she knew there were going to be a risk to the base.
Right, I remember that. Oh, that was a sad, crazy ending, but it's like, oh my god.
But none of the replicators sent a message back saying, "Hey, we're being stuck in space.
Yeah,
Don't go through."
It's a trap.
And then like the replicators turn back and it's like, "Hey, so they're telling me that it's actually space on the other side. You're not lying to us or anything, are you?"
No,
Shepard
that
just
story
pushes him through the Stargate.
Yeah.
Speaking of Shepard, I was reading the trivia section on IMDb for Stargate Atlantis. Apparently, they wanted to get Ben Browder to play Shepard initially. He was like the first choice, but he was doing that Farscape movie at the time, and he couldn't do it. So they got Joe Flanagan, the guy that plays Shepard now, to do the role.
Oh, is that why they put Ben Browder in the later seasons of SG-1?
Probably.
Yeah, the fanboy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a bit weird.
I read every single file while I was in the hospital.
They
great,
did the
thanks.
thing with what's his face, Jonan. Can't remember his name.
Jonah,
Pretty
yeah.
forgot. He's very forgettable.
Yeah, I think it was Jonah. Yeah,
Jonas.
Jonas.
The backup.
Janice.
Jackass.
Something. I think I think it's Jonas.
Well,
And Janus was the ancient scientist guy.
the Janai. He was from the Janai, I thought.
Oh yeah, no, he's the ancient scientist, Jonas.
Jonas
Fuck,
Quinn.
I'm confused now.
He was.
Jonas Quinn was the guy from that planet where they discovered the Nequadria.
Right. He was
and he replaced Daniel Jackson.
Right, exactly.
StarGate 1,
yeah.
SG-1.
I thought he was a member of the Janai, though. Okay.
No, that's SG-1.
No, he was an SG-1.
Janai
He replaced
Atlantis.
Daniel Jackson, and everybody hated it.
Yeah.
And there's so many storylines. I just can't remember them.
Neo 2266 says he replaced Daniel for a season.
Right.
So.
Because
that was while Daniel was ascended.
Right, because we remember that. Because...
Yeah, and everybody hated it.
And Daniel didn't really he didn't leave properly, or at least the actor didn't, because the actor still had the contract to come back, and then because he kept coming back as his ascended self on multiple occasions during the season.
That was actually a funny scene between him, Ascended Daniel, and Jack, when Daniel's like giving like this monologue or whatever about like how Jack needs to help him out with this mission and whatever, and Jack's just standing there silently taking it in, and then he's like goes in like, "Hey Daniel, how's it going? How's the Ascended life going for you?"
And Daniel's like, "I don't have fucking time for this," and he's like, "Oh fuck, I'll play the game." It's like, so, and then Jack goes, "Well, I haven't seen this friend for a while, and suddenly, he's all ascended, and now he wants a big favor from me, and I don't know if I can really do it."
See the irony?
Oh yeah, he's some all-powerful god, and he needs my help.
That was the elevator scene. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Oh, I remember just randomly thinking of Jack. I remember Jack came back in a universe for like the first episode or something.
Oh boy.
Oh, he gained weight.
Yeah, he gained a lot of weight.
There was two scenes.
I feel bad for him.
There was one at the house of the math guy who they wanted to pick up, and the scene in the boardroom.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot that in universe they created a video game to fucking try and find people who could unlock the ninth chevron. What kind of fucking
yeah, it was some kind of scientific formula or something like that, and he figured it out. Like he's like a college dropout. Like I remember an episode of like I think it was like one of the first couple episodes of Universe where they kind of pointed it out. Like the commander asks two scientists to figure out something, and then he turns to Eli, and Eli figures it out effortlessly, and the commander turns back to the two scientists and he goes, "I had to ask the college dropout for the answer."
and he was playing an MMORPG.
It's
They just
not,
asked the question.
So specifically, the idea of using challenges and online stuff to find intelligent people isn't an out there concept, as we do know things about Cicada, which were projects which were online puzzles to try and get people who were really intelligent to this is a competition for that. But it's an MMO video game.
Can you imagine that playing like World
with
of Warcraft?
With Atlantis as the background.
What were they expecting to come out of that? I don't know.
It's
a video game.
So yeah, the other scene was with the.
You're gonna get some really like fat gamer guy, and he's gonna. What's he gonna do to solve your puzzle?
The power of the internet. They'll figure it out eventually. Like one guy.
What are they gonna do if this guy wasn't in like a country which they had jurisdiction over?
Yeah.
Like,
they never really thought about that. Oh,
like,
that reminds me.
In Turkey or something. What if he's in North Korea?
That reminds me. I was watching the episode from StarGate. It was season 6, where they disclosed the StarGate program to the other countries like Great Britain, France, and China. The Chinese ambassador's reaction is hilarious, especially in 2020. Because the first thing he says when he's being told about the StarGate program is like, I must return home to my country so I can inform the people of China. Like he's going to tell everybody in China. He's like, we cannot keep secrets from our people. And it's like, I'm not even talking about COVID. I'm talking about the human rights violations from last year.
Oh my God. Any idea when they say, oh, China, we're going to be open with our people? I'm like, what?
We cannot lie to our people. Oh wait, we
cannot keep the secret from our people. Okay.
I mean, you did tell the people that Mulan would be a great movie, so you're used to lying.
Well, that was they had a lot of recap episodes in StarGate, yes. Like a lot of them, and that was one of them. Where they recap all the missions. They had another one not too long after that with Anubis, because they had a new president that came in, and when they caught him up to speed, it was like, oh yeah, here's all the adventures SG-1 has been on, and then they got the other one. And it's like, oh well, here's all the adventures SG-1 have gone on.
Oof.
Yeah, I like the guy that played the president in the later seasons. Henry Hayes was the character's name, but I forget the actor's name. But yeah,
I think they needed to replace the president because people was it Bush who was in charge at the time, or at least for a lot of SG-1. So they kept talking to they were very ambiguous with the president. It's just hot up red phone is like, yes, Mr. President. It's like, yeah, okay, we can't keep going with Bush. Nah, we have to get a new one.
Actually, it would be Clinton for most of it because it started in '97. So
that's right. They had an episode early on. I forget what season it was, but it was when they had the hiddenness. They were worried about like the brainwashed soldiers like turning assassin or whatever, and they were walking a guy through the hall of the SGC, and you could see him from the back, and it was the president, and he was a very tall guy with like white hair, but it turned out to be like a body double in the end. They said.
Oh yeah, the Zatarks were the all brainwashed, and it was Martuv who was the Zatark in the end, because they thought Sam and O'Neill were Zatarks because they didn't realize that they were lying about that mission where they became unconscious, but they thought they weren't telling the truth. Also, they thought they were Zatarks because the whole idea of the Zatark, the detector anyway, was that it just detects when something you're saying doesn't quite match like what your memories are, like so what you're thinking, and so, I don't know, some kind of subconscious memory, like there's some kind of contradiction. Don't ask me how it works. I can't remember.
And it was essentially like a fancy lie detector, essentially.
Yeah, So they didn't realize that they were lying about their because they said, "Oh, why did you stay behind and not want to leave Carter behind?" And it's like they give some generic reason, like there wasn't enough time. But the reason why they thought they were Zatarks was because the real reason was that they cared for each other.
Okay, so let's go back to, or let's finally finish with Universe and list all the things we liked. I'll start it off just because I remember it the most. I think it was the characterization, the plot itself of that being on a ship was reminiscent of being on Atlantis, but Atlantis was stationary. This was a ship with a goal, and no one knew what was going on. No one knew how to survive. No one knew how the ship worked. It had this design, which was, I don't even know, like techno, was it futuristic punk or whatever you would want to call this gritty, darkened, coppery. There were some copper pipes. There were all sorts of weird things going on in the ship, which didn't make too much sense. But they also had like instant recharging stations for electronics. Like you just tap it and boom, you got your full battery. There was all sorts of weird stuff running around through this ship. And that's what gave it sort of an alien, ancient feel. Like it's it works, but it doesn't do the thing you expect.
The aesthetics in Universe were disgusting. Like, I don't even know how the ship is supposed to be ancient. I know it's supposed to be really ancient technology. That's weird to say, like old ancient technology, but at the same time, it just
they have flying
the look
balls.
Is so forced that they wanted it to be Battlestar Galactica.
It's a combination of so many aesthetics. Like they have a shower, they have like a not a latrine, but like a still, like they were distilling alcohol. They were doing all these things in this ship, and then you had this command center, and it was all different. Like what is the design aesthetic exactly? So I got the idea it was dark and mysterious and techno punk or some other version of that flavor, but I could never put my finger on what exactly the style was. Now that's just visual appeal. I like the actual look of the ship from outside. It looked like this big sort of giant warship, like a half moon or whatever you want to call the overall shape. But the crescent moon, right? But the characters are what I cared about mostly. And my favorite character, there's like the Eli and Rush were the big two. But the one that I liked the best was Greer. He was like your quintessential Marine. He had a chip on his shoulder. He had some problems in the past, but he was like if there's a guy who's going to pull you out of a foxhole, this is the guy. Like he would protect you no matter what. So they had these very clear characters. There were characters that I did not like whatsoever, though. The Young, that was the guy's name. The commander, I just did not like him at all. I thought that was the point. You're not supposed to like him. They're going to kick him off because he's not prepared. But they were going with the SG route, where the wrong guy is in charge. So he was making all the wrong decisions. There was Chloe. I absolutely hated her. I thought she was excess baggage. I don't know why she was there.
I hated the lieutenant. What's his name?
Wasn't like she was pretty much useless there.
So they had to get her captured by aliens.
I'm not defending the character, but like the whole point of the character was to be not useless. Or not useless. The whole point of the character was to be useless.
I guess that was the point.
I hate one character. What's his name? Lieutenant. His name was Matt. He was supposed to be like, I guess, like the shepherd or whatever of the team or whatever.
The guy who goes on missions. Yeah.
You know, generally.
Yeah, I did not like him because he was kind of a scumbag. Like he's got a girlfriend on Earth who has a son. He's dating one of the enlisted personnel, and now he strikes up a relationship with the senator's daughter, Chloe.
Oh God, that was like, dude, what are you doing? Like he's just sleeping around with everyone. And what's her
all
name?
In the first episode too.
Well, if you've got it, use it. Come on.
I can't remember a single one of the characters' names, like for the life of me. I remember Eli and that's about it. And all the characters
I will say I like
just
Eli
so
and Rush.
forgettable.
I like
for
those
me.
two.
Who did Robert Carlyle play? Because I know,
Rush.
wasn't he in Universe?
Rush. He was Rush.
Rush.
He was
right,
Dr.
Okay. Dr. Rush, I assume.
That was like the main, like he was the guy doing all the stuff, keeping all the secrets. He was like, he wanted to stay there. He didn't care about, there's a big contention of did he care about anyone else on this team? And at points it was like, yes, maybe no. We weren't too sure. So that was kind of like, are you here to help us or get us killed? Or do you care if you want to?
Oh God, Shiny, I forgot he was on the show as well.
When did Q turn up? When did Q turn up on Stargate?
He was part of the
he was on
NID.
SG-1.
Yeah, it was the NID or the Rogue NID and the bureaucratical stuff, but they were also very corrupt.
All right. See, I only saw the adverts for it, and from what I got from it was exactly like what Shiny said. This is just Battlestar Galactica, and I was just not.
Or at least their attempt to follow the popularity of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
But it never. It never works to throw out your existing audience and try to catch a new one. You're trying to shed your fan base to gain a more lucrative audience. We've seen this with everything from Star Trek to also even Star Wars. It doesn't work. Don't
Doctor Who's
throw
been
away your
changed
fans
as well. Yeah.
with your lifeline. It's a very bad idea. The reason why it had such abysmal ratings because the people who enjoyed Battlestar Galactica, they didn't care about universe. They were watching Battlestar Galactica. Don't try and follow a trend when you've got a perfectly fine fan base enjoying Atlantis. You're making enough money out of it, but some producer or someone who wants money is like, oh look, that's popular, but this is less popular right now. Let's cancel the thing that's popular but less popular to try and make something to follow the more popular.
I don't think the problem was the design. I don't think the problem was the design or trying to court another audience. It was the stories themselves. And the likability.
I do have a problem with them trying to court a different audience because especially since they cancelled Atlantis and then they replaced it with this, and Universe was the thing which killed Stargate. Because that solidified it as something it's not profitable. We can't make money off of it, especially after the shit show that was the ending of Stargate SG-1 and the films. And then on top of that, was it Universal? I can't remember who had control of the license or still does. They were, reconstructing themselves or something because they became bankrupt. Now we have no Stargate, and I don't want Stargate to come back right now because of the whole shit show a lot of franchises are going in. But
there is talk. Sorry to interrupt you, Shani. There is talk of a revival. They're saying right now the original producer of SG-1, I think it was Brad Wright. I think his name was. He said that it's not a reboot. It's not a remake or in any sort of way. It's going to take place in the same universe as SG-1 and all the others, and that's all he could say about it. But it's all very hush right now.
I forgot about Stargate.
They also said that about Picard, and there is no way in God's green earth that Picard takes place in the same universe as the other Star Trek series.
Okay, so did any of you watch the abysmal series, which was Stargate Origins, which was their attempt to test the waters with the Stargate franchise?
No, I heard about it, but just did not attract me.
Oh god, how does the this like the Stargate effect, like the water, shimmering water?
Yeah.
How did that de-evolve? Because the actual effect itself looked abysmal. It was
really.
It was fucking awful. It was a whole story that didn't need to exist. It was nonsensical. It then randomly brought the Hascesis and retconned multiple things from the original film. So the reason why, because we're following what's her name, what's Catherine? That's it. Who was part of the film and also comes back in SG-1 a couple times.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And she she goes through the Stargate after the Nazis come and they activate it, and they go through and they find, I think it's Ra's wife or something like that, and it's the reason why she's on the run from the rest of the Goa'uld is that she's got the Harcesis, or a Harcesis anyway, which, if you remember correctly, is a son or a child of two Goa'ulds inside a human body, and the child they have has all the memories of the Goa'uld because the Goa'uld have genetic memory. They remember everything of their previous.
Yeah, it has like all the knowledge like of the Goa'uld as a species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Nazis try and make a deal with this Goa'uld for their technology. I think I stopped watching after that, but I remember hearing that the female Goa'uld brainwashed Catherine to try and rediscover the Stargate, and then the reason why she doesn't want to go through the Stargate in the film was that programming then stopped.
What?
I know, it makes no sense. And it was abysmal in its production quality.
I mean, Stargate the effects were done in '97 for a TV show. So the fact that if you're making it recently and it's worse than that, how much effort did you put into
in 2017, 2018? No,
2017. Wow, if it's worse
2017, 2018.
So your effects are worse than what it was 20 years ago.
Well, the effects, the original effects were in the film. They were like, I can't remember when the film came out, but it was way
1994.
better than 1994. The effects in the 1994 film were so much fucking better than what we had in Origins, which admittedly it is a web show or a web series, so it does have less budget, but the technology in this age is so much more available. I have seen fans create incredibly intricate Stargate effects, which floor this one, and do you know when they were uploaded? Fucking 2014. So if fans can do something better 4 years earlier with technology which is very openly available, what the hell were they doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was trying to find an image of what it would look like.
Oh god,
I've just seen the trailer. Oh no.
Yeah, I actually can't find anything on it anymore because the original thing was I can't. Where did I watch it? I don't know, because the whole Stargate streaming service wasn't available for me in the UK. But I managed to watch it somehow, and I remember hating it because it was so shit. But the only way I can see to get it now is to get it on Amazon Prime, and it's about $15 to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Forget that.
I'm just looking at. Oh my.
Meanwhile, on Amazon Prime, you can watch Stargate Atlantis completely free with Prime.
This is just. Yeah, I've just seen a trailer and I look at the gate and it does look shockingly bad.
Mm-hmm.
So
honestly, the whole thing looks shocking.
Everything with the cinematography looks horrible, and they even reused some shots from I think the original film. Oh yeah, and the actor who played Michael and also played I'm trying to remember his name in Enterprise as well. Tucker. He's playing like the father of Catherine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh right, yeah. That's his not Baldwin. What's his name? I know what you mean.
Oh yeah, and it was also kind of had that really annoying SJW lens as well. As you had two soldiers, or at least I think this other person was a soldier, and they were just complete idiots all the time, and Catherine was doing everything.
Yeah.
It almost
God,
had almost like, you remember? Does anyone remember the Peggy Carter show? It almost had like that kind of veneer,
Oh
where
boy.
everyone else is just idiots, and
Yeah,
it's like the woman who's like better than everyone else.
yeah. Oh my God, this trailer looks so cringe.
Oh, it's pretty bad, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, people are asking in the
Just-
chat, which is better.
Let's move on.
No.
It just looks that looks terrible.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're comparing two very bad things, Origins and I guess Infinity. I don't know. I didn't watch the cartoons. I don't know what the big deal was.
Well, that's what.
Well, people in chat are asking what has a better potential. Was it Origins or Infinity? And this is also very similar to what Shiny was asking about with Agent Carter, the time period, the technology level. What could work? And when you're talking about low tech, like we're talking 100, 120 years ago, of people just getting to the Industrial Revolution. We didn't even have steam power yet. So, at least, or proper gasoline or proper fuel for heating our homes. So imagine having that sort of not entrepreneurial, but frontiersman sort of spirit. That is really difficult when you're going to alien planets. So there would have to be some sort of really, really safe places to go. That you can just like, oh, we're good. This is another Earth oxygenated planet with plants and nice bunny rabbits and
The reason I think I remember the reason why they
perfect
explained
English.
The reason they explained why all the planets were like oxygen atmosphere was because the ancients only would have put like StarGate on habitable planets.
For the most part, yeah.
Like that makes sense, because why would you want to travel to some dead planet when there's a perfectly habitable planet? Well, we want to go there. Well, let's put a StarGate there.
Yeah, so the idea of StarGate...
I think the premise of Infinity, was it was set in like the far future of the SGC.
Yeah, you need
They had
to
really
have
advanced technology. I can find the first episode for free on.
You need to have if it's science as magic, then you have to have at least believable level of science or technology for humans to even cope, have a chance of surviving, or have an opportunity to accomplish something. So you can't just have like, oh, I'm going to invent my air lung machine so I can exist in outer space or something. Like, oh, really? We're going to be, diving underwater? It's like, no, we're going to space with this giant tank of air.
Yeah.
Like, it's not quite going to work. You have to have a comparable level of tech to even attempt these science fiction stories. You can't just, unless there's like magic or some other bizarre element to introduce, but then it becomes very, very niche, and not everyone's ever going to want to read that or watch that. So no, I don't think the 1910, 1920, or even before that level of industrialization would work for that kind of story.
Yeah. No, it's like I was saying, watching the trailer about Origins. It's like Origins. It feels like it wanted to be. Do you remember the Fifth Element? That first scene in the Fifth Element. Sure. It feels like that. It feels like it wanted to be that, but a full movie of it.
If it was not like SG-1, if it was more like Indiana Jones, if it was more like people with lower technology going.
You get Indiana Jones feeling from just looking at the trailer of it.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's that sort of time period where they have slightly better tech, and they're going to places where it's like ancient or medieval, and they sort of fit in to figure out how to help people. Like that could work. Like
I know we're kind of dogpiling on Origins a bit, but now that I've heard the premise of it, I kind of want to see the Nazis go up against the Gould.
Here it is. I found the animation test by someone in 2014. Here it is. So a fan in 2014 did this just for shits and giggles. And look how much fucking better that looks than what they did in Origins. But anyway, like the final effect you see at the end, it is a lot better looking. But I honestly think Origins and Infinity, they didn't need to happen. They were shows which didn't need to exist. I think Universe it would have been fantastic as its own show. It was not good as a Stargate show. It didn't need to be a Stargate show. There was no reason to slap the Stargate label on it.
Well, I think
I think one of the problems with Universe was sorry to cut you off there. I know you mentioned like it was kind of like disconnected from like the Stargate universe, but it was also like too dark and gritty, and they tried to like in the past, in SG-1 and Atlantis, we had like aliens speaking perfect English. And then in Universe, they're like, okay, now let's backtrack that. Let's have aliens that speak their own language, and we don't understand them, and we're having these misunderstandings. It's like, no, you're going to go backwards too much.
Well, they were very aliens. So I can understand them having like their own language shit. But it was... It just was a terrible idea. It should never have happened. They should never have made Universe in Stargate.
Well, it sounds to be it sounds like it was just like you said, an attempt to get Battlestar Galactica. It didn't quite work out, and so yeah, they just. If they hadn't tried it out, I'm sure people would complain about them doing things too samey. I think I think that's a problem with stuff. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Atlantis was, I think there was supposed to be 2 more seasons at least planned, and then they had to cut it short because the show was being cancelled again because while it was popular and making money, it wasn't as popular or making as much money as Battlestar Galactica. So they again cancelled Atlantis for Universe.
Yeah.
And so if they just kept going with Atlantis, I think Stargate would be a lot more profitable to this day, rather than it being a dead franchise.
What they need to do now, like if they can't continue the shows, they should at the very least make a really good video game, like a Mass Effect style video game where you're going through the gate, you're exploring other planets and things like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing that idea out there.
This is going to be a bit random, but I don't know if any of you are big players of Gary's mod. But there was a very big mod for Gary's mod called Carter's Add-on Pack. And what it is it was a huge library of Stargate assets. So you had Stargate ships, Stargate weapons. You had every single version of the Stargate. They had that. And it was extremely fun to play. You could get a puddle jumper and fly around. You could spawn a drone platform, and then it could fire these drones up into the sky. You could manually press the DHD to open up the menu, and it was really fun. And there were so many tiny references in there. Like another thing they had was, was it the Tolan weapons disabler? That was just like small things like that were even put into the game, and it was very fun. So I could imagine them. You could definitely make a Stargate video game and make that very fun. Though,
it definitely could work. I'd be interested.
I think they tried to make an MMO at some point, but it failed.
Yeah, Mr. X in the chat says there was going to be an MMO at some point, but there's IP issues apparently. So.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened to it. But I remember seeing material for it in some videos. It's called Stargate Worlds. I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, but yeah, I don't know what happened to it either. I think they did like another video game. I saw like a there's like a entry for it on IMDb. Like they got all of the actors and actresses to do the voices. Like they got Christopher Judge to do Teal'c and Claudia Black and all that. But I can't remember the name of it. I looked it up a couple days ago.
I'm trying to remember the. It was called Defiance. There was a show called Defiance that also had an MMO, and that was the big thing about the show.
Oh yeah,
I played that game.
Yes.
Yeah, the graphics were really crappy.
Right, and
I don't remember a single thing about the game.
the show is actually not bad.
It is a free to play game. I think I found it on like PlayStation 4 like a while ago, like a couple months ago, and I was like, "Oh, this game! Completely forgot about it."
Right, and it was pretty much your generic get better gun sort of game. Then you're running around with that better gun, doing quests, waiting for the whatever events where there's like this stuff falling out of the sky, and it's basically
you could join up with like random people. I remember like doing like a boss fight with like 30 other people. We're all shooting at the same boss at the same time.
Yep. But the story itself, in the like the idea of aliens coming to Earth and changing our culture, and after a big apocalyptic sort of event, that storytelling was actually well done. It wasn't the best, but compared to like Stargate Universe, there was at least some humanity and believability in these scenarios of various cultures clashing.
We haven't talked about Continuum yet, have we?
Oh boy.
Ooh.
Oh.
That was the Stargate movie, right?
That was the third Stargate film.
Right.
That was the second TV movie.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the one? Is that the one where
the alternate timeline and Ball?
Yeah, the alternate time. Oh god, yeah, I saw a clip of that the other day. Yeah.
So the story is the last Ball clone. He changes time as he has a time machine. All of a sudden, it can predict solar flares. So he goes through and plants a bomb on the ship. For some reason, because they step through the Stargate just as everything starts disappearing, as the Tok'ra just start vanishing. They go through the Stargate. They're somehow protected, and they end up in the Antarctica. Daniel ends up losing his leg as he gets dropped in ice, but it doesn't really. Nothing happens with it really, which is it's like they don't really bring up the fact that he's lost his leg. He gets a prosthetic almost instantly.
Well, he has died 15 times, so
it's like, it's just a leg. 'Tis but a scratch, and it was a whole pointless movie. Like they just.
It's the same. It's the same with the previous film, the Ark of Truth. It was just this weird sort of.
But at least the Ark of Truth. Well, it started off in the Ori War, and then it ended the Ori War. What was the point of continuing?
And it had Marina Baccarin.
I'm trying to
Great eye candy.
I'm trying to remember who that was.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, she was Inara on Firefly, the prostitute. She was on SG 9 and 10. She was Claudia Black's child,
yes,
who grew up to be
she was smuggled across the border using Claudia Black.
Yeah, they even make a great Star Wars reference talking about the child before it's born.
It's like, have you ever heard of a child being conceived without anyone doing the dirty, and then Teal'c just goes, Darth Vader. It's like, really? How does that turn out?
Yeah, and before she can answer, like, Ben Browder cuts him off.
It's like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, that was when I was like, okay, that's a bit.
The movies were not something I got into.
It's a bit hokey. I don't like these ideas of children and this and that coming around, and they're the villain now. Like, that's nice.
Are you trying to tell me that if you saw some sort of ghostly apparition of a child, you think it was bad storytelling, Smud?
That happens to be a villain.
They brought back the replicator.
I could just see Smud pointing at like a ghostly child. No, bad storytelling.
My son hates me. Oh no.
The way they defeat the Ori as well is just they shine the Ark of Truth into one of the priors. It changes all the priors' minds and that's enough to weaken Adria. So Morgana or what was her face? Something
I'm all
Faye.
the Ori. Yeah, it's kind of great. Yeah.
It's like, you're no match for me. It's like, I am now, and then they just cancel each other out and they just explode.
Oh God.
Oh. Wow.
I remember.
Yeah, a lame ending to the Ori. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think the Ori were fantastic, but considering they were the biggest, most powerful thing we've ever encountered in Stargate, it's kind of a bit of a lame way of sending them off.
Take the Pa Wraiths from DS9 and just water
actually
them
had
down.
superpowers in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that, Smud?
Take the Pa Wraiths from DS9 and just water them down. That's
Ugh.
the Ori. Only they have a lot more ships.
Wow.
They have a lot more actual ships because they were real and physical, whereas the Pa Wraiths were, I don't know, stuck in some weird world. Some cave with some fire, but also the same. The Ori also had a cave with some fire.
Some fire.
They had like 4 or 5 ships initially. Then they had like 4 or 5 ships, and they just decimated like 20 plus ships with like their energy weapons.
We need more.
Yeah, the
ships.
attacks die in one hit, which is again, they changed the attacks from being like a big threat to all of a sudden just the paper ships. They just die in a hit. That's
cannon fodder.
We can't take over the galaxy unless we have a really big Stargate. So they build a gigantic Stargate. You're like, oh.
They built the Supergate.
Really?
Oh yeah!
Wow.
Huge. They were flying ships through it. Yeah, the Ori ships, the ones we showed earlier, they were flying through it.
What?
What was it? The Battle of the Supergate. I mean, it was a fun space.
God, are you looking it up, Shiny?
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
it was a fun space battle, but it was fucking nonsensical. Even ships just randomly disappear because they make a point of the Asgard ship. You know, the Asgard send a science ship to help dial out the Supergate before the things can come, and we see the Asgard ship a couple times in the battle, but then it just disappears. Like, it's never mentioned being destroyed, and they don't bring it up. It's just disappears off screen like it goes.
Oh yeah, and the Russians get their own Daedalus class ship, and it gets destroyed.
The Russian ship to then just have it blown up. It would have been actually interesting to have the Russians have a ship, and then they have to do something with the Russians, but then they just kill them off.
That's actually what they've done in the show. Like, they should have like included like have more like foreign teams, like here's like a team of Russians, here's the team of French people, here's a team of German.
What the hell happened to the Tok'ra? Like, in season 9 and 10, it seems like they completely forgot about the Asgard and the Tok'ra. They were huge parts of SG1 for the most part. They were the biggest allies of Earth. And then all of a sudden,
and when the Asgard died, they're like, here's our guns, here's our shields.
The Asgard get reduced to where our villains are the replicators, so that's all we live for now. We're here to stop the replicators. We can't procreate. Our genetic whatever machines we use to make ourselves aren't working anymore. You're like, okay, that's...
Well, they're still working, then just every time they clone themselves, they
don't work.
The genome gets mutated.
That doesn't make any sense. I was like sitting there like, what?
Got genetic degradation.
It's like, what? What? We lost our desire for sex.
It makes sense. It makes sense that when you clone, you make a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone. It's the cloning process isn't going to be perfect, so it's going to be mutated in every single clone iteration, and they've lost the original.
That's only if the original is being mutated, not the clone itself.
I know, but we're talking over a very long period of time.
It was not.
Yeah, I think they even said they look like humans at one point. They look like humans, and it's like, ooh, you guys do still look like us?
Well, they look like humans, but they've got big heads and they still had the pink skin.
Right, so
they actually had penis, which I think they
did away with sex, right? So they no longer procreate. But that was like the ultimate aliens that are very powerful.
Just a flaw with Stargate, I just realized. So the Asgard were around at the time of the Ancients. They had the ability to go from one galaxy to another, as we know they had an alliance. We don't know what actually happened with this alliance, other than the Ancients just kind of went away. But apparently, the Asgard never even evolved. They never became. They must have been really shit back at the time of the Ancients in order to, be at this level of technology. I mean, they're advanced, but we're talking about like at least 1 million years or something.
I want to know what happened to the furlings.
Yeah, they never explain that, do they?
Well, they explained it in one episode. Granted, it was a joke.
They had a joke explanation that they accidentally got killed by the Goa'uld, but that was in episode 200. And they say that never happened, and it's like, oh, but it makes good TV.
That's plenty of science fiction.
So many funny ideas in that 200th episode.
Forget complete characters or plots or civilizations that are amazingly strong or godlike, and they just, I will see you again in 100 years or something. It's like, who cares? We're never going to get to that storyline ever again, and they just forget about it because it's episodic in nature. So this happens almost every show you could think of. There's going to be DS9 event. There's going to be a TNG series of characters or plots that just are just left open. You don't know. They could come back. And the same with Q. Q can just pop in and go, oh, I'm going to save the day because I'm Q and I'm laughing at you humans for being stupid. Like, why did that happen?
I think they were trying to purposely stay away from the furlings because like it's not only a really stupid name, I don't think they could ever do it well, but they could have just said that they died off and that would have been more than a good enough an explanation. They never needed to do anything with it.
Well, I think they were kind of like putting it off at first, and then like O'Neill makes that comment in season 6. He's like, "Oh, I just can't imagine cute furry creatures making big scary guns." And they're like, "You know what? Let's run with that as a joke."
Well, the idea that Shiny brought up with the Toker, that's kind of like a simple story idea of having the villains be the good guys. So you have this other form of the Goa'uld who are the good Goa'uld. They don't like taking over civilizations and giving into their vices. So that was like, that's a pretty simple idea. And they just sort of...
They were Antifa. I mean, the Tok'ra.
They just forget about them. It's like, what happened to this entire civilization of...
Well, like, they forget about them in season 9 and 10.
Yeah.
And, well, no, they only really bring them up like when they need to extract Ball from Adria. But, yeah, that's the only time.
Well, and I think the Tok'ra were pretty much like had it with the humans too. They're like, yeah, we don't need these guys. Let's go off and, let's do our own thing. Yeah. Same with the Jaffa too. The Jaffa were like, oh yeah, we got rid of the replicators. We took over.
There was tensions with the Alliance.
We were the dominant, force here, and the humans are like, excuse us?
Yeah, but there was at times there was like weakening in the Alliance, and the Tok'ra were also a bit hesitant to like do battles because they were very weak in numbers, and they had
they were more of a guerrilla force. They were like run and gun type.
They're more espionage, but they
yeah.
Like Earth had a very strong alliance with them in season 9 because they mention it. Like they say, "Oh well, Tok'ra intelligence this," and then they come and help Earth on a whim to like extract Ball or blah, 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 blah. So again, we know their alliance is strong. But the plot only brings them up when it's convenient.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I forget the actor's name, Carmine something. He played Carter's dad on the show.
Yeah.
They were the Tok'ra were starting to like have enough of his deal. Like he's like, oh, you're not one of us. You're an actual Earthling. And they were kind of like trying to like pull away from
the end because towards the end, we only really saw what was his name, Jake or something? No, not Jake. Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob.
So they saw Jacob was talking more than Salmak, and I think that's because Salmak was getting older and weaker. So they were starting to question Salmak.
Oh yeah, Selmak got injured by the ancient super weapon of the Kara.
No, he wasn't injured. What happened?
No. Jacob made a. He said something about it, like he had like
okay, I remember exactly what happened. So I'm cutting you off there. So what happened was, like he should have died, and what they normally would have done is that they would have just let them. That they would have separated with the body far along their death and to allow the human to survive. But because they needed the information, which Selmak had, because he's obviously an intelligent alien, they hung on so that they could, stop, get the weapon to stop the replicators. But he was hanging on for so long that Salmak went into, I forgot what it's called now. When someone goes unconscious,
Catatonic?
A coma?
Coma, that's it. He went into a coma just as the weapon was being activated, and he didn't wake up. And because he was dying, he was taking Jacob with him, and he was slowly releasing. Because obviously Naquadah is poisonous to humans. He was slowly releasing Naquadah and something into Jacob's
Right,
system.
I remember that's like their fail-safe. Like if they get captured, like the symbiote can release the Naquadah into the human's blood and kill them both. I remember that from the show, but I don't remember the episode in question where Jacob died. I'll have to watch that one again.
I think it was season 8, I want to say.
Yeah, it was season 8 because O'Neill was the boss then.
Jacob didn't. I think it was the same episode where they try and. Carter was gonna get married and get a house with this guy.
Oh
and
God,
then also
Pete, that dipshit.
Yep, Pete the Cop, and then there was also
who was played by the director's brother.
Yeah, there was also Jack as well, who was also dating this FBI lady, I think it was, and it was they were sort of setting up that they were getting together, and I think behind the scenes, the director said that's when they officially started dating. And there's even behind the scenes, also they even cut content from Stargate Atlantis, where Samantha kind of mentions that she very much hints strongly towards her and Jack having a complicated relationship.
Well, actually, they wanted to do that way back in season 7. They thought the show was going to end back in season 7 of SG-1, so they were originally supposed to kiss, in that scene where they're in the cargo ship together, and he gives her command of the team, and she was supposed to kiss him then. But then they're like, "Oh no, the show's being renewed for a couple more seasons," and they're like, "Okay, let's drop that plotline."
Then they make They make Jack General for season 8, and it didn't work. I'm sorry. Hammond was definitely the better general, and Jack was better off being like the military commander.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of liked Jack like going through he was like becoming the boss, and like he's like encountering problems, and he's like, "Oh God, what do I do? What do I do?" Type of thing. I kind of like that element of it, like he's the guy in charge, and like he's not going on missions anymore, and he's like having to do like the administrator stuff, which someone pointed out in like the trivia section of like IMDb or the goofs, like, because O'Neill is a full bird colonel, he's actually supposed to have like an administrative type of role. Like he's not supposed to be out in the field because of all the secrets he knows.
True.
I think they mentioned that he had a desk. Like he says, "Oh, well, now I'm general. I'm gonna have a desk." And then Carter's like, "You already."
I think they made that joke like a couple of. They made that joke a couple of times.
So he was
making
this entire time.
Yeah, he was making jokes about like memos and stuff like that, and they're like, "They're going to your desk. They're going to your office," and he's like, "I have an office."
Yeah.
But I think Jack was definitely the highlight of SG-1. Because he was just a comedic powerhouse. Of course.
Yeah, all you had was Teal'c running around killing people and saying "indeed" every time. That's all he would. That was the extent of his lines. Half a season was just him being there.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw a Q&A where Christopher Judge talked about like the eyebrow thing that Teal'c did. Like he'd raise his eyebrow. He didn't like that because like. Initially when he did the eyebrow raise, that was like something he did on a whim, and then like later on in the show they started writing it into the scripts. Like they would say Teal'c would raise his eyebrow.
And he's obviously gonna have to keep trying to do that constantly.
I do remember some of those cons where what's his name, Daniel Jackson, the voice actor, would say, or the actor would say, I'd have all these lines and memorizing all these lines and preparing for the next day, and then you have Christopher Judge walk in. He has 2 lines, and he walks off the scene. It's like, yeah.
I think you got that.
I love Teal'c's, like, he's really passionate about media, and they bring that up. And I think that's some. I remember specifically in season 9 where they're in that museum and they get mistaken for terrorists. So, and they even have the guy who thinks he's what is it?
John McClane. Yeah, they even make a reference to it. Like they say, "Oh, we got a John McClane here," and then Teal'c walks by, and Teal'c walks by behind him. And he goes,
Daniel
"Die
doesn't know what it is, so he's like, "Wait, what's John McClane?" It's like, then Teal'c goes, "Die Hard." And they bring up Teal'c's love of media in, I think it's season 7, as I think there's something. Oh yeah, it's the episode where Carter has the relationship with that ancient. I can't remember his name for the life of me.
For that one, and then he's seen Star Wars like 9 times.
Yeah, Jack says, I never seen Star Wars, but Teal'c apparently likes it. So do you want to watch it? And he's like, I've actually got someone over. And then Jack's like, you got a hot date? And so, oh, fine, we'll just watch it somewhere else. Let's get pizza.
I remember way back in. No, hold on. I remember back in season 1 when Teal'c was like watching TV and he's like watching like all of like the Earth programs, and then they're gonna go topside. I forget. I think it was the one where it was the clone of O'Neill was running around, and Teal'c is starting to leave with his staff weapon, and they're like, Teal'c, you can't bring that with you, and he's like, I have seen your world. I will need it. He's like watching like the news, like he's watching like wars on TV or something like that, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna need this."
You think the world is just horrific because of the news? That was a good joke. I like that one. But there's the word Jack's waiting for the ancient information in his head to start taking control again. So they all just kind of go around Jack's place for a beer. And then he gets drunk and he's really excited. It's like, oh, come on. Teal'c is like really deep. Come on. Teal'c, say something deep, Teal'c. And he says, my depth is not something to this conversation. It's like, look, see? And it's like, you're not getting any more alcohol. He just takes the beer bottle off him.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
There's so many, just the cast for Stargate was, at least for SG-1 Atlantis, was so perfectly picked. In SG-1, they have such a fantastic dynamic and they play off each other so well. Like, Daniel and Jack play off each other fantastically. Jack and Teal'c play off each other fantastically. Jack and Carter play off each other fantastically. And they all have like some kind of like this team friendship bond that they all have.
I remember way back in the pilot episode when Teal'c betrays his god and like betrays like his men, and the scene where he's like walking around the devastation and he's looking at what he had just done. What Teal'c did, and O'Neill's like, "Come on, let's go, come with us," and Teal'c goes. He's very solemn. He goes, I have nowhere to go. And then Jack goes, for this, you can stay at my place. And I just laughed so hard. But that was like such a great scene for Teal'c because he just betrayed everything he knew on just for a stranger that he knew nothing about. Well, that was such a great scene
because he knew that. Well, Jack's like, oh, I can save these people, and then he goes, many people have claimed that, but you're the first person I believe who can do it. And then he throws the staff to him after shooting some of his guys, and he starts beating them up.
So yeah, but it's still like such a great scene. Like Teal'c just betrays everything he knew, like right then and there. It's like such a great scene. And then afterwards, like he's realizing what he had just done. Like it's now catching up to him. He's like, I have nowhere to go. Like he just now realized, what I've done.
Okay, well let's.
I think SG-1, or at least Stargate in general, it has a very unique way of balancing its comedy and its like its story, like the tension in its stories. I don't think there's any point that the comedy has ever ruined a scene, like not like Marvel humor or like the TLJ. It's always been. I don't know how to just quite describe it as just perfectly done for the situation. Like it'll only just be
I would say
something
perfectly balanced. Like it fits the.
Oh dear.
It never takes away from anything.
All right. Well, let's bring this to a close. Let's say what the one thing is we remember and like the most about Stargate as a series, and what it really means to us. Because I think that's why we all remember it, even if my memory is a bit hazy about all the stories. Because there's so many episodes, there's so many characters, there's so many plot lines that go places, and we forget where they go. So let's start with BB. What do you think is the one thing that you recall most about the series, and why you still like it?
Well, I said this earlier, and I'll say it again. The first episode, episode of the show I ever watched was Window of Opportunity. That, like, I knew nothing about the characters, nothing about the show, and yet the comedy and, just the whole sci-fi element of it just made me want to go, I want to see this from the beginning. So I went and watched the movie. Then I watched, seasons 1 through 8 or whatever at the time, and I was just so hooked. I just wanted to watch more and more. I loved it. I thought it was a great show, and I was excited when a new episode came out.
I'm really sorry for laughing, but was it someone commented a quote, and I remember it from Jack. It's like, you cannot be serious, and then Jack replies, yes I can, I just choose to not be some of the time. Again, Jack's just perfect.
Yeah.
So Sarcastic Hawk, what do you
Jack
think?
was all of us.
What do you?
Oh, what?
What do you think is the one thing or the thing most memorable that you like as a series as Stargate goes?
Definitely with SG-1. It's just the fact that I've got fond memories of when I was younger, watching it with my parents, and it was just something like my family could sit round and just watch and enjoy. I always remember enjoying my time watching the series, and I am now actually listening to Shiny and Beta talking about it. Going to rewatch SG-1 and carry on from where I left off, because I left off in series 5 and 6, so I missed out on a lot of this extra stuff. So I'm going to go back and watch that. But yeah, SG-1 takes me back to my younger years, and it's just something that I did always find enjoyable growing up.
Okay, Shiny, what about you? I'm sure you have a lot more to say, but give me the one thing that you remember the most and why you still like the series.
I think one of the things that endears me to the show the most is, at least in SG-1, it's definitely the comedic elements which are mixed in with the more serious elements, specifically with, again, Jack O'Neill. The unique science fiction of the world. Again, it's set in a modern time, and it's also twisting in the elements of mythological stuff from the real world. It's like putting all things like Norse mythology into an actual science fiction context, which I don't think many science fiction have actually done. And I think one of my favorite characters in Stargate is definitely Rodney McKay. He's so flawed, but at the same time, it makes up for his flaws. And even though on the surface he's very, selfish and a bit of a dick, he's the one which is always going to be, he's going to be working harder and be more selfless when it comes down to it. Even though he's, going to be greedy and it's like, I'm going to have the last cookie or something, or the last sandwich. He's not going to let anyone else have the last bit of coffee. But he's the one who's going to put everything on the line when it's really there, or it really needs to be.
Cool. Well, I tend to see Star Trek or other shows like the Star Trek vein as the go-to science fiction on TV. That's when you think of science fiction, you think of Star Trek. So when Stargate came around, I was skeptical. It's like, okay, this is based off a movie. But if it wasn't Stargate, it would have been another idea that involved a doorway to another world of exploration and adventure. And you see that with Doctor Who. You saw that with other shows where you have some method of transport to get from A to B. But because Stargate was contemporary, everyone can say, oh, I get what's going on here. And it was an easy, accessible way. Plus, it was a family-oriented show, as Hawk was saying. Anyone can watch it. When we go through the series, it becomes much more adult and serious as we get to Universe. And I think that Atlantis was a nice balance between these bigger ideas and still keeping an episodic, family-oriented science fiction show that is not too complicated to understand. The most complicated thing was the Stargate itself, which was the center of the whole series. And I thought that was a very clean form of storytelling. And sadly, when they tried to do better, do more, try to get more audience, try to do bigger and better ideas and be bolder and courageous, they didn't have the writing acumen to back that up, to tell that. Because if you were to tell that story like BSG did, and even BSG failed in many, many ways, they did not have the chops to connect the dots and have drama and comedy and love and romance and all these other elements which that story needed to have, because space opera is this big, big pot of all these other genres and all these other ideas, and you have to have a very clear vision on what you're doing, and I think that's where Universe failed. But I do respect its boldness. They certainly took a risk, and it didn't really pay off, and unfortunately that's when everything fell apart. So it'll always be remembered to me as that the concept of television, at least for science fiction, which did compete with Star Trek, especially, what was it, 10 seasons SG-1 went?
Mm-hmm.
Second
10 seasons of SG-1. Was it 5 seasons of Atlantis?
5,
2
yeah,
seasons
5
of
of
Universe.
Atlantis.
Yeah, and only 2 of Universe. And I thought, the name Universe was also too, like, just the name Universe is way too ambitious. Have it Stargate Destiny or Stargate Galaxy or something smaller and focused, as opposed to just, we're explorers.
Well, I think it was because they were going to the center of the universe.
I know, but that's just such a... They didn't even explain that well. I could barely wrap my brain around
Well, it was
Stargate
everything was supposed
Beyond.
to be going towards
Stargate Beyond.
the center of the universe. They just didn't really get to finish the story because, everyone jumped ship.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
I think the only reason why it had a second season is because they ordered 2 seasons and they'd already paid for those 2 seasons. They just didn't bother to refresh it for another 2.
It's a sad thing because I would say myself or another science fiction author would love to just jump into, oh my God, you're giving me 12 episodes to play with of a survival horror, science fiction, political love drama, like just, oh my God, like what do you want to do this time? Oh, let's do this, let's do that. Obviously you have to know what you're doing, but man, wouldn't that have been a fun thing to get right? Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I used to watch it. I was like, the synth music, like they changed the tone. I was like, that's really bold to do that. Because when you hear the Stargate theme, it's all orchestral, it's all positive. It's all da da. It's very happy, very uplifting. Like Star Trek is uplifting with its intro music, but with Universe, it was synth. It was like dangerous and scary and like dark. So
I can definitely tell from Smud's where he's saying that he is quite disappointed that it didn't do more. As in, I think Smud can definitely see something there. And I think if you know where I'm coming from, it does sound from your voice that you're like, you really hoped it would work because you liked the idea behind it, but unfortunately the people writing it didn't have.
It's the same opinion I have of Atlantis, because Atlantis also had great potential and it did succeed in many ways. It just didn't go, it could have gone further. And that's what Shiny feels when he sees, well, if they just did Atlantis properly and not done on Universe, they would have probably had a much better story. And I agree, they would have more time and resources to do that, because even if they didn't have great endings or great other episodes, they would have focused on it, made a much better quality product. And we even had relationships at the end. There was that one episode where we're not sure who the hell the Doctor is going to end up with. It's like, what is this episode? Why is she hanging out with Ronan? Like, what's going on? Like, that was weird. Why are we focusing the narrative to romance? So there were opportunities to go in further. I think the death of the original Doctor was a great dramatic moment. I like the fact they're not scared of doing stuff like that, and it wasn't that cheesy. It was just enough cheese, like, oh, he's a clone or whatever. Like, it was like, okay, you could say your goodbye. Like, that was good. So they had a lot of appreciation to the audience, which I very rarely see in that kind of, because with Star Trek it was just stuff happens and people get older.
Yeah.
And that's that. Like, oh, Deanna is dating Worf now. You're like, okay, that's a thing.
Oh yeah, that was yeah.
So
yeah.
That never worked well with me because Star Trek was too idealistic, whereas Stargate was down to earth, and that's what worked. So if it wasn't Stargate, I think someone else would have come up with the gate concept or the doorway concept, and probably wouldn't have worked as well. Anyway,
yeah,
we can probably have another conversation about specific episodes. I think we should, because there's lots of really, really good episodes in SG-1. Really bad ones in Universe. I can recall a few.
If you can do that, then I'm definitely going to rewatch the series, so I've got a bit of a more of an understanding of it, because I was taking a lot of my memories from when I was quite little. Yeah. So I felt kind of
well, what
like I wasn't really added much.
What I'd like to do, I don't know if we can get away with this.
Yeah, and if we talk about like certain episodes, we should definitely talk about episodes that like have like a morally gray or a black and white, argument to them. I think me and Shiny talked about a couple of them in the SmudCast like a while back. When we were talking to LiteratureDevil.
I don't know if you guys remember watching Red Letter Media recently, the past few months. They've been doing their top Star Trek TNG episodes.
episodes, yes, I've been watching those, yeah.
And I would love to do top Stargate episodes just because there's so many. And they work so well because you don't have to be a Stargate fan to appreciate. I think they're kind of universal because they're not overtly about the science or the scientific elements. They're about the humanity of the characters and what they want. Like, it's very easy to understand compared to like a god like Q and his existential moments in Voyager. And you're like, oh, okay, that's you're bored.
You're born, you live, you die. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
good luck.
Voyager's a whole other issue. Anyway, I don't want to take any more of your guys' time because it's been over 2 hours, and I do appreciate everyone.
Oh,
this is all BB's fault, but we appreciate BB. It's a great idea. So thanks.
I take full blame for everything.
Okay. I always appreciate Shiny's input because he has a very detailed look at his love of science fiction. And
I have a very great memory of every single episode of Stargate.
This is true.
No kidding.
This is very true. Better than
I have to correct all of y'all on your fucking inconsistencies.
Yep. That's what we have here for Shiny.
Smud thought it was what was it?
The 2 episodes.
Rodney, he was in the last episode of SG-1.
Yep.
I don't know how the hell you thought Rodney was in SG-1.
Because you know what?
He's in like a few episodes.
Because the writing in
very rarely.
The writing in Atlantis
G1
for that
was
episode was great, and the writing for SG-1 at that episode was bad. I think that's what really good. I was like, something was not. Oh yeah, I replaced it with Atlantis. That makes more sense.
I do like how Smuds and I go and thanking BB for the idea, Shiny for his knowledge, and Hawk. Well, he was here.
Hawk, I like because
it ruffles my hair.
You're like the guy who
do anything, Hawk,
who knows what he likes the show.
You participated.
Like me, I'm like kind of like Hawk in that regard, but I can't really say much because I don't remember too much aside from Universe because that was the most recent. That was like 10 years ago or something. I can't even recall the last time I watched that.
Hey, in all fairness, Hawk. In all fairness, Hawk, LiteratureDevil was here, and he's never watched any of the Stargate series, not even the movie. So, in all fairness, you were ahead of him.
See, I'm remembering all my knowledge comes from 20 years ago, and I'm like, that's how much Stargate stuck with me. Yeah, but that's how much it stuck with me. 20 years later, I can still remember things. So it's a good show.
Very memorable. I think I've got them all on. I've got all of Atlantis on Blu-ray, and I've got all 10 seasons of SG-1 on DVD.
There wasn't really a horrible season out of SG-1. There wasn't anything that just went... Like, you could look at the beginnings of TNG or the beginnings of DS9. With SG-1, it's like campy and silly here a lot, but it's mostly dramatic and serious at times as well. So there's no real bad season I can think of.
Yeah, even
in
my favorite sci-fi, Babylon 5, season 5 of that is absolutely terrible. That's a really bad season. But with SG-1, yeah, from what I remember, I liked all the seasons I watched.
Even I think season 8 and 10, 8, 9, and 10 are quite weak. But even then, I think there's still at least some good episodes. I know someone said that episode 200 was cringe. I actually really enjoyed episode 200. I think it's...
Yeah, so did I.
It's Stargate has always been very good at making fun of itself. Again, it's the pre-established wormhole extreme parody. So, I think, did they do that for episode 100? The SG-1 parody?
I think it was.
So, yeah, it makes sense why they do it for episode 200. And then a lot of the things where they were making fun of themselves and the franchise, I was fine with that. It was a little bit weird that he was celebrating his 200 trip through the gate. It was... what's his name?
That was a little weird.
That didn't work.
Yeah,
Ben Browder. Yeah, that didn't work. But it would have just worked if they were, just stuck there in the office and they finally got to go out into the galaxy again. Just kind of quickly, what did you guys think of what's his name? The general that replaced Hammond in season 9 and 10? Because I didn't really like him that much.
I thought he was okay, but I think he tried to play it initially like too straight early on. Like he was trying to be like the military guy. But yeah, he kind of played it too straight for me early on. But then I think like as later on, he kind of loosened up a little bit.
At least he had some character in terms of like he had the history where he wasn't really there for his wife and child, and then when the whole Ori plague was happening. Like his daughter finally understands that like she can not tell, she can't see her mother right now because she's dealing with all the work, and she can't even tell her what's happening, and then she like starts to understand what he must have gone through.
I'm trying to remember all those characters. There's been so many. You're not talking about Mitchell,
yes.
Right?
No, he was talking about Landry, General Landry. I forget his name.
Hank.
Yeah, Bo Bridges.
He was like generic General Hammond. Yeah. I'm generic military guy, and I'm American. That's all I remember.
Yeah, you can never really replace General Hammond.
Hammond was like, I am going to beat your ass.
Shiny. It's Hammond of Texas.
We never even talked about Braytak.
Oh, Braytak was awesome.
He was great.
He was the best. He was so cool.
I did love the Hammond of Texas, and he kept putting his hand above his head because Neil said he was very bald. So he was referencing the bald part with his head every time he said Hammond of Texas.
Braytek was just amazing. Like he was always serious. He's always not stoic, but just had this aura of I don't know, not honor. I tend to think of him and the Klingons in Star Trek. They're very like this is what we do. Like everything is, he knows exactly what he's doing. They see him as a master or as a guy who's in charge, even though he's not like in command of people.
Well, he's used to be the prime of Apophis,
right?
Before Teal'c replaced him.
And he was Teal'c's mentor In fact, I remember he was the one that planted the idea in Teal'c's head that the gods are not actually gods. So he's kind of responsible for Teal'c being who he is in a way.
And he led a lot of the Jafar resistance as well.
Yeah, no,
But,
I thought his
Braytak
character
was
fantastic.
just great. They mentioned it's like, oh, if I was 100, I was like 30 years younger or 100 years younger, it wouldn't be so easy to get me on my ass. And then O'Neill's like, oh, you're over 100? Oh, I'm really sorry. And then Braytak just kicks his ass.
I always use that this one line that Braytak says. O'Neill's like, watch and learn, and Braytak, misinterprets it, and he says, observe and learn. I always use that. I always say that, like, instead of watch and learn, I always say observe and learn.
I think it's funny I think it's the end of season 1 when Apophis has the 2 ships and they're going to attack. That Braytak's saying, okay, so first we need to get past and go down the flights of stairs. We need to take out the guards.
Oh, the shield generator. I know what you're talking about.
And then we've got to do all this stuff, and then we've got to aim our weapons at the generator, and then while he's explaining this, O'Neill just pulls out 2 grenades and just throws them over the side, and they fall down and explode and take out the generator. Oh, that was funny.
I do remember the line from Braytak when they're talking about how they're going to defend Earth. He's like, shuttles, are they formidable?
Surely you have some kind of defenses. Oh yeah, we have a number of shuttles. These shuttles, they're a formidable craft. Yeah. Well, we're so fucked. Not a good day.
I love it. I love it later on. It was in season 8. I don't know what episode it was when O'Neill becomes the general. Braytak comes to visit him, and he's like, "You are a wise." He's like trying to butter him up. He's like, "You're a wise warrior, O'Neill of Minnesota." and O'Neill's just like, "Sit down, you old coot."
People are talking about in the chat the person who married Michael Shanks. I don't know if they met on Stargate. I do know they also played together on Andromeda.
Oh, his wife.
She was the daughter of Landry.
They met. I saw the Q&A for that. They met on Andromeda.
Yeah.
The show Andromeda, and that's when they met and they started dating. Yeah, that was a long time ago. God.
I've never watched Andromeda, and I don't know what it's about or what's.
It's Kevin Sorbo in space. That's all you got to know. Kevin Sorbo with a retractable baton staff from Stargate that gets caught in a time loop, and there's a bunch of
who is this?
Kevin Sorbo, Hercules.
I don't know who that is.
Kevin Sorbo and Xena.
Yeah, Kevin Sorbo. Yeah.
Hercules
Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah.
Not ringing any bells at all.
You know about that live action Hercules show from the 90s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of live action Hercules. You're gonna have to narrow it down.
No, from the 90s. It used to be on like.
Yeah.
I've never seen
Hercules: The Legendary Journeys.
Hercules, so
It's a series,
go look up the trailer, Shiny. Go look up
You'll
the trailer
love it.
for it.
You'll love it.
Just type in Bo Hercules TV show.
Yeah, Kevin Sorbo. Yeah.
Or I'll look up Andromeda.
That's another good idea.
That doesn't help because there's a lot of it. The first thing that comes up is Mass Effect Andromeda and
What? Just delete. Get rid of that.
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch the original Andromeda series.
Even Andromeda TV show.
Yeah. Oh god, there were so many funny things in that show, like the Nishians. Oh my god, that was hilarious. The Nishians are attacking us. Like, what?
Why? I'm just hovering over the preview of the beginning or something, and is a really cheap-looking green alien who's being like going from side to side in his chair. Whatever the fuck that's about.
Also, I remember what the Hercules. It was Hercules: The Legendary Journey. I think it was called. Yep. I think that's what that series is called.
Yeah, and he'd cross over with what was it?
Xena.
Xena. Yeah.
Xenia or whatever, the
Xenia,
warrior
Warrior
princess.
Yeah, that was like basically God of War for TVs and as a woman. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah. The 90s, good times.
Oh boy. Anyway,
I was only around in it for a little bit, but
Yeah.
I remember it a lot.
Anyway, guys, that's been SmudTalk. Thanks for joining us. We might do another one. We might actually have a week. Every week, we'll watch an episode of Stargate. That might be fun. We'll talk about it. That'd be good.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I'd do that. I'm quite interested in going back into it again there.
I think we could watch it at our own time maybe and then talk about it just because it's faster and easier because we're going to be pausing a lot. But definitely I want to do a top 10.
Yeah, that'll definitely work.
Top 10 shows. We'll pick our own list and we'll talk about them each. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds all right.
Sounds good.
I've got plenty of free time in this lockdown.
That's true. Yeah, I know. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon, and have yourself a great evening. Bye-bye.